10th special meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to remind everyone, if you do have cell phones, please put them on silent, and also remind everyone that this is being taped, so it will be publicly broadcast. We'll start off with, I have a sheet, so we'll read it up here. Reports and presentations of the, call to order, roll call, please.
Ms. Chisholm.
Here.
Ms. Cormier.
Present.
Ms. Crowley.
Present.
Mr. Lipset.
Here.
Mr. Lorennen.
Here.
Dr. Wells.
Here.
Mr. Kissel.
Here. So next, we'll have the reports and presentation of the superintendent, budget updates to the school committee, and Mr. Elkanada and Dr. Crowley, please.
Sure. I'd like to start by just reading a statement to the folks assembled tonight. Good evening. I want to start by thanking everyone for being here tonight, because I think it clearly demonstrates how much we all care about our children in the Woburn Public Schools. Specifically, thank you to all of the educators that are here tonight and who are making a difference in the classrooms across our schools each and every day. To our parents and families that are here tonight, thank you for your support and partnership, and for allowing us to educate and care for your children. And to our elected officials, the school committee, some city council members that are here, and Mayor Galvin. As I've said before at these meetings, we are living and educating in a challenging environment, which has changed radically even over the last few years. I know that we are here tonight to talk specifically about our FY24 budget, and I reiterate that we need to acknowledge that the needs of our students have never been greater, and that is reflected in our budget asks for FY24, which are greater than ever before. The budget we built reflects the evolving needs of all of our students. Since December, we've been meeting with a variety of stakeholders to listen to the needs of the schools and the departments to develop a budget that prioritizes the social emotional health of our students, targeting learning loss, and support our family connection to our schools. In this process, we always start the budget with a wish list, trying to hear what everyone would ultimately like to have in the next fiscal year. Over the last few months, I, along with my team, have been working collaboratively with our administrative colleagues, principals, elected officials, including the school committee members here, City Hall, on our FY24 budget. It's a long, deliberate, and collaborative process. As I just indicated, the FY24 budget was created to prioritize the changing needs of our students by adding additional positions and the reallocation of existing positions. While reductions were made to our initial FY24 budget asks, please note that the FY24 budget, as presented last week, does add positions ranging from administrative assistant, paraprofessionals, social and emotional support for students, and additional teaching staff. Certainly, we've had to be creative and flexible, and this was not an easy process. So again, thank you to everybody for being here tonight and for advocating for our students. I'm with you. I'd like to also remind everyone that while the committee and I are here to listen, that is all we can do during this public comment of tonight's meeting. We will listen to all of you have to say, and I'm certain the committee will take your input into account. However, the public comment period is not a dialogue, and so therefore there's no real back and forth during this section. I'll close by just saying that I find Woburn to be an amazing community. We've gone through a lot together over the last few years, highlighted by our collaborative efforts during the height of COVID. During this time, I often closed by thanking people for their patience, flexibility, and kindness. I do so again tonight. Thank you for your patience, flexibility, and most importantly, kindness. There are times when we need to agree to disagree. But let's make sure that we model for our students the kindness and caring that makes Woburn so unique. Thank you.
So we'll make a motion to open public comment in a moment. I just want to recognize WTA President Barbara Locke, council members, and I can't see if they're all here, President Mike Concannon, Jeff Dillon, and Bob Ferrulo.
And Chuck's here.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce Chuck in a second. Oh, DeMambro, I'm sorry. Lou DeMambro as well. I appreciate that. So Chuck is here, so I'll say Chuck Viola as well, but he is actually going to come up and speak in a moment. But opening the public comment, I'm going to open it with Mayor Scott Galvin. Say a few words. And for the speakers, we're going to have, as before, not sure if it's going to apply here, but a 3-minute limit, as well as, obviously, for all our speakers, if we can be respectful. I do have a gavel here. I don't want to be banging it all night, so if everyone could just keep the comments down, take it all in like we all are, and just keep a nice, respectful atmosphere, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee, I wanted to come tonight to talk about the budget process from the city and how that is interconnected, of course, with the school budget. So I'd like to go over that. I have a slide that I presented to you guys. Bob, you're going to run the slides and we'll get going. So when you start with the city budget, the first thing that we look at is city revenues. And there are 3 sources of city revenues. The primary source is the property tax levy, and that accounts for 80% of our total revenues. The other revenue sources come from state aid, Chapter 70 and UGA, and also local receipts, which are motor vehicle excise taxes, building permit fees, hotel, motel, meal tax, and a few others. But the majority of our local receipts have rebounded from pandemic lows. Inflation, Federal Reserve interest hikes, and a possible recession will most likely impact those city revenues. Just with regard to the property tax levy, so people do understand what it is, as I said, the levy is the biggest source of our revenue. Again, 80% of our revenues come from the tax levy. With Proposition 2.5, the levy is strictly limited by two ways to increase, and that's 2.5% of the prior year's levy, and also new growth from construction from the prior year. Those two factors represent our increase in real estate levy. The City of Woburn's levy for tax fiscal year '24, as you can see behind me, is about $6.4 million, and that's based off of our FY23 levy. We take the 2.5%, that gets us just about $4 million. And the anticipated new growth for 2024 is $2.5 million, and that's an increase in our levy of about $6.5 million. With regard to our other source of revenue, that's state and local aid, which we find on the cherry sheet. And again, I've made a comparison of what we can expect to see in increases in FY24 over FY23. And you can see it's not very robust. When you look at the receipts versus the assessments, we're going up about $639,000. And I think, as most of you know, that number could change. We get different numbers on the House side and from the governor. And the Senate came out, and I believe they came out with numbers that are slightly higher than the ones I have here. So we are optimistic that those numbers may increase. But we're not, Woburn's not big beneficiaries of local aid this year. We also have the third leg of our receipts is from local receipts. Revenue from, again, motor vehicle excise tax, meal tax, hotels. They've all rebounded from pandemic lows. But building permits we expect to be lower next year due to inflation, high interest rates, and potential recession. As a result, we've conservatively estimated our FY24 local receipts, and we're anticipating they come in around the same as this year. Next, we go to the operating budget after we've identified our revenues. And on the city side, we've reviewed and analyzed each department, identified where savings and efficiencies could be made. As a result, we will continue to maintain all important municipal programs and services we currently provide to our residents. The overall preliminary city budget is increasing from $156 million to $163 million. That's an increase of $7 million. With school funding, which we include the vocational schools in there, represents half of the total city budget. And again, remember, revenues have increased by $7 million, just slightly over that amount. The school budget I just want to talk about now is, there's not a decrease which is commonly put around there, there's not a decrease in funding. There's actually a very substantial increase in school funding this year. It's increasing the funding to the schools is increasing by 9.8%, which has never happened. I don't know the last time that figure's happened, but we get there when we look at the FY23 budget allocation, which has been increased, working with Bob, to $74 million. That incorporates the supplemental appropriations we made to cover salaries last year. The FY24 budget allocation that I'm authorizing, as you can see, is $78,905,393. We've also made an accommodation of out-of-district expenses, which came in high, of $1.8 million. We plan on funding those through the SPED Stabilization Fund. There's also a capital allocation of $600,000 for a total of $81,305,393. Again, that's a significant commitment to the schools, and it's a continuation, and you'll see in a later slide, of our commitment to the schools. I just wanted to also talk about some of the funds that the city has, substantial funds that we put away. First one I wanted to talk about is the stabilization fund. And yes, we do have a substantial stabilization fund. We have $14 million in there. The City of Woburn established a stabilization fund to serve as a reserve for years when the city faces a multiple-year economic recession, a rare catastrophic event requiring a significant expenditure, or planned capital expenditures, which we generally do. Having a well-funded stabilization fund is important to help the city through a crisis and to ratings from bond rating agencies, which in turn impacts our borrowing cost. Next, we have free cash, and we have $39 million in free cash. And just so people know what that is, free cash is the remaining unrestricted funds from operations from the previous fiscal year. Free cash comes from unanticipated actual revenues in excess of revenue estimates, unexpected unspent funds from operating budget line items, and unexpended free cash from the previous year. Free cash provides a financial cushion against events such as a sudden loss of revenue source, an economic downturn, an emergency, or other unanticipated expenditures, non-reoccurring capital expenditures, and uneven cash flow. Free cash can serve as a source also for funding capital outlays or replenishing our stabilization fund. The city will not use free cash to fund operating budgets. Free cash is considered a non-recurring source of funds and should only be used for non-recurring purposes, including replenishing our stabilization funds. We also have an overlay account, which currently has about $7.5 million in it. And, just bear with me on the explanation. Cities and towns must maintain an account to fund anticipated property tax abatements, exemption and receivable exposure for all fiscal years. This is referred to the overlay account. As part of the annual budget and tax rate process, the Board of Assessors must analyze the balance in the overlay account and determine whether it is adequate to fund anticipated property tax abatements, exemptions, and receivables during the upcoming fiscal year, in addition to existing abatement, exemption, and receivable exposures for all previous fiscal years, including all tax relief and tax deferral programs. The city has been conservatively appropriating $750,000 a year from our overlay surplus to fund the OPEB trust fund in order to address costs associated with providing health insurance for retirees and their spouses, and also to reduce a massive unfunded liability. The excess levy capacity, cities may choose to set its tax levy at any amount below or equal to its annual tax levy. When a community sets its levy below the limit, the difference between the levy and the levy limit is commonly referred to as excess levy capacity. This is an additional amount the community could, but chose not to levy in prior years. Due to this, the city has $32 million in excess levy capacity, which is due to conservative budgeting and periods of strong new growth. The non-use of excess levy resulted in substantial tax savings to residents and businesses. The use of the excess levy capacity should be used to address debt service associated with major community-supported capital upgrades and not unsustainable department budgets. The last couple slides I'd like to talk about are the 10-year school spending and the support that the city's provided in conjunction with the city council and the school committee. As you can see, over a 10-year period, the average increase that we've funded is 4.18%. When you factor in the VOC and the Essex Aggie, it's slightly higher. Also, with 10-year school spending, I think it's important to note the support, again, the collaborative support that we've provided to the school funding that doesn't show up on your budget. That's in the form of debt service. We've built a number of schools over the year, and over the past 10 years, we've taken on debt from the Goodyear and the Harold Wyman. We've also built new roofs at the Kennedy and the Joyce. You can also see the capital funding, which is something that doesn't get included in the increase in school budgets which other cities and towns may commonly put in. And again, there's been a substantial outlay of capital going back as far as 2013. You can see those numbers. I don't have to go over them, but again, it's a commitment and a continued commitment that we've made to the schools. And lastly, just wanted to talk about the federal funding. Matt alluded to COVID and the the times that we went through together and the support that we worked on collaboratively between the city, the school, and it's important to note that ESSER funds are significant and are a significant part of the school budget. Again, I'm not going to go over all of them, but you can see them on the chart. Also, the city has provided, starting back in 2020, there was a $40,000 commitment of COVID funds, and a much larger one in 2021 consisting of FEMA and CARES funds, and that was $1.7 million, and that was at the suggestion of the school committee and the superintendent, where we provided laptops to all students who weren't able to come to school. So, significant commitment there. And also in 2022, we put up $264,000. That was for the HEPA filters and again, to make the schools safe for the teachers and the children. So that's the commitment. And again, the most important thing I do want to say is that the money that we're providing this year, the 9.8% in school funding over last year, is not a cut. It's a substantial increase over last year's fund. I know you said there's no questions, but I'd be happy to answer any of the questions from the school committee members if you'd like to.
Yeah, we can open it up. You prepared for that? All right, who has some questions?
I had a question.
All right, Ms. Crowder.
So one of our stressors, as you know, Mayor, is the 14% increase of out-of-district tuitions, right? All of that. And that's kind of a stressor that is making us bubble. And I was just wondering if that would be considered an expense for the stabilization fund, since it's an unexpected anticipated cost in the city.
And that's what we did, Alan. We moved 1.8 off the budget.
So that's
That
coming out of the
1.8 was moved
stabilization.
off, and we're calling that an
Yeah.
accommodation, so that's been removed from your budget. We're hoping that, working with the school committee, Maureen, and the superintendent, that some of those expenses might not.
It's a stabilization.
Yeah, it's a stabilization, so we're using that, and we're hoping that we're able to avoid some, but if
Yeah.
we're prepared, we are prepared to address them as they come.
Okay, so that was done to actually specifically address the
Yes.
unanticipated 14% increase. Okay. And then my other question is sort of the learning loss in the positions that we're building in that are necessary, especially over the last fiscal year, that we had to build into the budget because of post-COVID social emotional issues and also learning gaps. Would that be considered an unanticipated cost as well that could?
No, that's the stabilization is specifically for out-of-district costs.
No, I mean for your sort of rainy day fund. I mean, aren't we in a period of time where we are sort of navigating unanticipated costs related to post-COVID?
I wouldn't say that the rainy day fund would be used to address those.
Okay.
I think one of the things, Ellen, that hasn't come out yet, and it may, and I'm not saying it is, but the report, the work by Danisco to identify capital needs is going to be extensive.
Sure.
And some of the, stabilization rainy day may be appropriate for that.
Okay. Right, because it's more capital versus.
Yeah, there's capital, and also there'll be significant, I would assume there'd be significant debt that may be related to some of these projects. And again, that's why we talk about the excess levy and why it's so important that we have that and that we use it when it's, we're looking at expenses that, may be related to debt that are pretty extensive.
Another idea could be to replace ESSER. So we are getting, these ESSER funds, and we're using them for interventionists and reading specialists.
Replace with what?
And what?
I missed that.
With the rainy day fund, we could.
No, because, see, the rainy day fund is not for ongoing expenses. The rainy day fund is for one-time expenses. And you brought up you brought up ESSER, I didn't. ESSER was meant to address, impacts caused by.
But we don't know how long those are going to last. So
Yeah, but
I'm saying that
you've got about another year worth of ESSER funds, and then there's, and it's not just the city of Woburn, it's every city and town in the Commonwealth, and they're talking about, what are you going to do? And it's like a whisper when people talk about it.
Okay. And any idea what the Senate's going to come out with?
You know what, I hadn't looked, but they were supposed to announce something yesterday, so I apologize, I didn't look, but we were told it was going to be 3.6% for August, so that would help.
Okay. So our budget is currently at, it's a little over 79 million. It's like 79,218. What do you think about that?
Well, I gave you the number, that's the
Okay.
number I made the presentation, it shows you what our revenues are, and it shows
Right.
what the budget are, what the preliminary budget is. There could be changes in revenue, there could be changes in expenses, but I don't think so.
Well, I just want to let you know that we tried to squeeze the orange as much as possible, and we added in 4 positions, but we do think they're vital organs. But we're going to, I really appreciate you coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I'm done.
You all set? Dr. Wells?
Yeah, so thank you for your presentation. So with regard to the stabilization fund, I think long-term we have to look at how we're going to do that every year. I know you're doing 1.8 this year, but obviously that's the thing that's eating at the budget that we can't control. And I don't know if we've thought about, a regular amount to be put in there going forward, so we always know that we're going to be putting that in.
It's a good question. We had that discussion when we met with, your department heads, and that was one of the things that we said it is going to have to be committed to, John. So we'll look at ways that, we'll look at ways that we can do that, but it's very important.
Yeah. And then the other thing, I know last year when I was chair, they were very good about helping us, when things change with our budget during the year, and I assume that is going to still be present, like if something comes up, more people move in, and we need a teacher.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that is something that we'll be looking at as well, and Matt keeps me abreast of all that. You've done a great job managing your budget this year, despite the move-ins. You've done really well managing it, and talking to Bob and Matt, we don't anticipate any shortages. Hopefully there'll be a little bit of a turn back.
Thank you.
All set? Pat?
Okay,
Chisholm. This is Chisholm.
on the excess levy, that's the $32 million. For the capital, I know our wish list went down to was a little over $1 million, and I know that it's something that we need for our buildings, and Dave Dunkley was really, pushing to have some more money for him to do projects in-house.
Okay.
So would that be somewhere that we could?
No, but the initial capital plan that I put together with our department heads, we put 600 in for the schools. We can look at that a little closer,
Okay.
depending on, some items we might be able to take off in the city side, but we can definitely look at that.
Good. That's great. And one thing that I'll take as a sword is the $40,000 that was cut for the AP tests. We're a city that does not charge our students for anything, and we're very proud of that, and I'm sure you're very proud of that too. So $40,000, I think, is something that, if we can at least squeeze that, that has to be something that we take as a priority, and I hope that this committee would realize that we don't charge for sports, we don't charge for busing, we don't charge for, and I think that this is important, and I think we should stay that way, and I just think that that's $40,000 is not a heck of a lot of money. So if we can just increase it by that amount of money, it won't even change it to a point. 7.05, could be 0.55.
Is that a yes?
I saw you shaking your head. Thank you so much,
I was
Scott. Thanks for
acknowledging
coming.
Pat's advocacy. Very good.
Yeah, so, but just to let you know.
You all set, Pat?
I'm
Yep.
going to reflect. They are not.
Colleen, please. Just Colleen.
So with the stabilization fund, the free cash, the overlay account, is that something that the taxes siphon into every year to increase to some extent? These numbers, like, do they increase incrementally every year based on how many taxes are brought in?
Well, so each one has a different, has a different component to it. If we talk about free cash, that's the operating, that comes from the operating budget.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if our revenues that we estimated come in higher, and the expenditures come in lower, there would be money that would go to free cash.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would take that free cash and maybe transfer it over to the stabilization fund. So the stabilization fund has, the operations have no bearing on the stabilization fund, other than we could transfer money from free cash into it.
Mm-hmm.
The overlay account, that's all driven by abatements, and we assess our property at full and fair value. That doesn't mean that an owner of the property agrees with us, and if they don't, they can file an abatement up to, I think it's February 1st, they could do that. So there are those items could affect the value of the overlay account.
And so, I guess my question is, like, things with the excess tax levy, the overlay account, if there was a certain amount that was going to be going into it, we're not taking out of it,
Right.
but I'm saying if you could put less into it, would that free up some cash for
Well,
other
that-
expenditures?
That item that we fund that, the overlay account, we fund that with $2 million generally every year, and that's off budget, and it's outside the constraints of Prop 2.5. So GOR kind of recommends what we fund for that based on the value of our property, and that's what we do on a regular basis. It could be slightly lower than that, Colleen, but right around that amount.
Okay.
But it could be.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
I
But that's all-
understand not
it's-
touching
yeah,
them.
It's off budget, it's really not.
Yeah, I understand not taking from them, as you
Yeah.
explained, but maybe not adding as much towards them this year. I don't know if there's a number we're looking to get
Yeah.
to, or
There's an annual amount that you're required to do.
required.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Lipson.
I also want to thank you for an extensive presentation. Municipal funding is a complex beast, and I appreciate having it laid out in this way, and hearing your thoughts on how you conceptualize the different sources of money and how we sort of set the city up for the future. I guess, we're going to be deliberating on our budget, and we'll see where we land on this. But I guess my question relates a little bit more towards long-term. And first, can I just a quick clarifying question? So you mentioned that 80% of the city's revenue comes from property taxes?
Right.
Does that include residential and commercial industrial? Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah. Do you know what the approximate breakdown between those is? I'm not trying to call you out on specific numbers, but in a sort of an approximation.
I should know that, but it's more. Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
it's definitely more. We get more from residential than
Right.
commercial, but we do shift them. There's a shift onto commercial, so they're actually taking on more than they normally would. But I'll get you the split.
No, I appreciate that. And so that sort of gets to my question, because in this room, our focus is on the students in the city of Woburn, and the needs that we are seeing right now are, as you know, right, very rapidly on the increase. An increase that that has really challenged our ability to meet them. And I appreciate the limitations that you're presenting to us. So I guess I'm wondering, at what point do we really start to consider our revenue as a possible source here, right? I mean, you've mentioned that the city has been conservative over the last several years. We have built up a $32 million levy limit, correct? Right, and so that's a lot of money that it's not there for the taking, but it's obviously money that is potential income or potential revenue that we are not utilizing, right? And so I guess my question is, at what point do we make the calculation that the needs that we're seeing, and it's not just in the schools, we're seeing rising needs all over the city, we're seeing population increase, we've made some investments in fire, and the new fire station is beautiful. But all of our departments, I think, have sort of felt that need to a degree. And so I'm wondering, at what point do we really think about our revenue as something to allow us to do what I think our population is really requiring of us right now?
Well, one of the things is that the levy is, the excess levy is for years gone by, right?
Right.
So, going forward, in this year, we're clearly going to use the entire levy that's available. There won't be any excess generated this year. And again, going back, to use that levy, I think if you look, Andrew, at some other cities and towns, if they, when they're at a point where they don't have an excess levy, every year they're talking about an override. It's not a position anybody wants to be in, just for operating. And it's very divisive, but in this case, the excess levy, again, you go back and use it, you're taxing that's an additional tax on residents. And it's clear, for me, it's clear that if you're going to use that excess levy, like we have the new Voc being built, that, when you look down the road 3 years, that's an extra $1 million that's going to start hitting us. So we need to keep our options open for that type of stuff. And again, we have other options, not just on the school, obligations on the school, but on the city side too, that will require us to keep our options open with potentially using that. And the schools have the biggest ask coming, which is going to be for capital needs, and that's going to add to the budget. So I think that's where you want to look at as far as the ongoing operating expenses. Yeah, there's going to be you guys are faced with making some difficult decisions, and I understand that. And the funding is, I think we're both recognizing it. I know you recognize that the funds that we're providing are, I don't want to say historical, but they are extensive, and it's a major commitment. So I understand what you're looking at, and I know you understand what we're looking at.
And I believe I said in our last meeting that if I'd heard last year we were going to get 9%, I would have danced in the street, and that's true.
Right.
And the problem that we see is, as large an increase as that is, for our students right now, it isn't enough. And I appreciate your position. I genuinely do. Right. So it's a difficult position for us to be in, and I know that you appreciate that as well. But,
Right.
but thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. How are you doing tonight?
Good, Mike.
A couple of quick things, if I could. Probably notice I'm wearing my black and orange tie tonight, folks. That's for Tanner Pride, and I think to me that means helping each other out. A little pride in our community, pride in our city, and pride what we have in Woburn, pride what we built this city up to. So I would hope by the end of the exercises this evening and moving forward, we can continue to try to do our best to move this school district forward in a good way. Again, I have supported your budgets for many years. The councilors are here tonight, either in person, myself, or via email to support your budget publicly at the end of the fiscal year when you start a new year. Honestly, tonight, Mr. Mayor, I really, at least from the school side of things, I wouldn't be able to really support what you've given us so far. I hope we can make some changes and work with you and the administration to getting back to my previous point, when I was down there at the council and I introduced myself and I said, I support this budget. Obviously, at that time, there was difficult times that the school board met. Every department head in your city had to meet to get to your numbers, and we survived. The city made do what they had. And people in this room have heard enough of me saying, please make do. I've got some line items that we're going to go over now, later on this evening, but it's been brought to our attention about the COVID, student loss, student learning. I know we had a great presentation from the administrative team. I still haven't really narrowed that down as to how much we lost, how behind the Woburn students might be, what it's going to take to get them back up to where we should be. Just, again, some of you know me that I'm kind of outside the box thinking a little bit tonight. So maybe people didn't understand all of what happens in financial budgeting for a Commonwealth or a municipality like you just explained tonight, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate, all those figures and all those numbers. Obviously, it's easy to us to say, people in this room say, well, just take it from there and we'll make do with that. It's, after you've explained certain things can only be moved in certain areas, so that's a great explanation. Couple of questions from the mayor, maybe at the city council level. I should know these things, I haven't been paying much attention, but just the fact that the city is about to sell some abandoned property or dispose of some abandoned property, perhaps we'll turn over the Wyman. I know both fire stations are vacant. Do you have any plans for that if and when there's revenue towards those buildings, Mr. Mayor?
Well, you want to talk about the fire stations, or you want to talk about the
Well, just in case,
Lyman, or which one?
all three, I guess, both fire stations, if we were, as a school board, would, to turn the Wyman property, if we deem it, back to the city, as we've done in the past with other properties, that goes back to the city side of things, and your plans could be whatever you want.
Yeah.
If, if those were to be sold,
Well, if
that'd
the
be
Wyman,
revenue to the city.
we'll make this easy. If the Wyman were to be sold, then, again, when Danisco comes down and makes their presentation, we would pledge that money could be used right away to some of the capital needs.
Okay, and again, I'm just trying to think of other ways, you gave great examples in there of some accounts that we can't go after. Again, we hear it all the time, at least I've heard it over my years here in Woburn, mitigation money from corporations and developments here in Woburn. If you don't get a moment for those people here in the audience, those people at home that may or may not understand the mitigation, when you see that at the city council level, where a developer comes in and they have mitigation funding, perhaps, where does that fund go, and how can we, as a school board, access some of those funds?
So I would leave that to the city council to address, but that, again, would be one-time funding, and, if there's a project that's coming in, the council does a great job shaking them down, for lack of a better term, but they do a good job.
And I know you're waiting to hear back from Danisco as a grandfather of a 3.5-year-old looking to go to a new school up in North Woburn. I can't wait for their presentation as to the continued school building plan for the Alta Vista Linscott situation. Again, another source of revenue is probably already earmarked someplace else. I know here in Woburn, many years back, marijuana was legalized. Now we have a recreation marijuana facility here in town over on Commerce Way. I know the council that's here tonight, they've been dealing with it. This may be a council question, maybe not a mayor's question. How would it be possible to access? I know it's going to police training. I appreciate that effort. Just didn't know if there was some way, again, just trying to find other ways to help us out here, Mr. Mayor. The marijuana.
That money, when we talked earlier, that money goes directly into the local receipts. We haven't received any from them yet. I'm not aware if they are open, but we're hoping that does accrue in next year. But one of the things about the recreational marijuana is we'll get some revenue from it, and when it goes in, that would be available for the overall budget.
Overall budget, again, that would be something through your office as well as the city council that.
No, it's part of the process where we identify our revenues, we identify the tax levy, we identify the local receipts, and then local aid. So the local receipts, could be higher, but we're not quite sure yet.
Okay. Again, we're currently, I know myself and Mr. Hockenauer are dealing with one body here in the city, so we're trying to meet all of our contracts and obligations to the other groups here at the school department. So we just, hopefully that gets reflected into the budget as well. Last week, we got the page somewhere in front of me here of the administration being asked to cut $1 million in one day, Mr. Mayor. I applauded their efforts that day. I think I said it was shocking to hear that, and, the efforts they had to do in one day. Some of them, I'm sure, were very, very difficult for the administration to do. It just didn't seem right at the time. We thought we were getting somewhere to get to it's 909 something, but some of these, they had to be cut. For instance, the middle school computer science programs. For instance, today, I guess, Market Basket lost their ability to process credit cards. If a middle school kid can't do a computer, who's going to help them out at Market Basket. So some of these cuts, not so much on you, but the numbers are there. I said it last week that a lot of these are people, not just numbers. Again, going back to the Tanner pride, trying to have a little pride in our city. I'm almost done, folks. Thank you for bearing with me. As a city employee myself for over 30-something years, I have access to City Hall HR department. The two people in that department do a wonderful job with the city employees, and it was almost devastating to see that we're going to eliminate our HR position here in the school department, and that position is handling so many employees. And going back to years ago when we tried and kept going by, and you make do without it. And the workload was spread out among other departments and other positions. And to me, I was just afraid that, for whatever could happen, an employee finds a violation, a compliance issue. And here we are, eliminating 135 on our budget, and this person loses their position. And I understand it's going to be spread out. Again, it seems to me a lot of people doing a lot of jobs, and I would hate to see something come down the pike that, is going to cost us more than 135 because of something that kind of slipped through the cracks, where the HR department, we talk about the city diversity, we talk about the culture of the city, the retention and, recruitment of our employees. Someone at this table is going to be tasked with those tasks as well as their other duties and responsibilities to help run the school district. So to me, that was another one that, really, jumped out and kind of shocked me. And there's many more on this list as well, Mr. Mayor, but I think we'll address those later on this evening. But I do appreciate your explanations. And again, I'm just trying to think of something, the wife and I went to Mahoney's and McHugh's today trying to find a money tree. There's no a money tree at City Hall. I understand that. But there's got to be some give and take here somewhere along the road, somewhere in the checks and balances to help out to get our staff and our students what we need to move this district forward. And I'm going to do my due diligence tonight. If it's a higher number you've given us, I guess, I'll take that chance and see where it takes us. So I'll put my soapbox down for now and bring it back up later. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other questions for Mayor Galvin? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you you gonna hang in, or? you have
Well,
some-
I was not planning on it.
Okay. I mean, there may be some public comment that may sway you.
No, I mean, what I would do, I'll
Just
stay
say
up here if you'd like me, and anybody wants to ask me questions, I would do that.
Okay.
It'll go on forever.
No, I know. I just meant hang in.
We can't have deliberations back and forth.
I know. I want to thank you from the school committee. Scott? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, come on, be professional. Jesus.
All right, so we have some emails that we've been getting over the last week or so. We did get a bunch from the Peak students. Anyone in the Peak department would know. Unfortunately, we can't address them.
I'll make a motion to redact the names of the
Yeah, we'll
students
redact
and
the
just
names.
refer them as students.
Yeah, so we're going to have those on file electronically like we do. All the other emails we got.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Make a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I just assumed it was going to. There were some folks that said they were going to come here tonight, which is great. I did get those emails and figured we'd, hear their comments as well. But again, most of the emails received were obviously on the budget, specific topics, specific programs, and we will have those all on file electronically. So I'm sure most of that will be addressed here this evening. So, also here this evening, I mentioned earlier, but Ward 7 Counselor Chuck Viola, who is the liaison to the school committee, so we'll kind of start off with a true public comment with Mr. Viola. Oh, there he is, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, members of the school committee. Thank you for having me. First, I want to say to the parents, residents, and teachers who've reached out to me over the past couple weeks, thank you. Eye-opening what's actually going into our budget this year for the schools. Look forward to the rest of the comments tonight by the parents, teachers that are here, and I look forward to the budget that this school committee gives to the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've already made a motion to open the public comment. Was that earlier with Scott? So does anyone else want to address the school committee? A couple of things. We're going to, obviously, as before, try to limit it to 3 minutes. Obviously, audience, if we can be respectful to all the speakers, as we said earlier, and address.
Okay.
You need your name and address as well, please.
My name and address. Julie Urquhart, 32 Carroll Road, Woburn, Mass.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Hi, my name is Julie Urquhart, and I'm a school adjustment counselor here in Woburn at the elementary level, and I'm speaking on behalf of elementary and middle school adjustment counselors. Not only am I a Woburn Public Schools employee, I'm a Woburn resident and mother of 2 young children who attend school here in Woburn Public Schools. I speak today to reinstate the Director of Counseling and Wellness Coordinator position, to encourage to reinstate. Social emotional learning is the bedrock that the curriculum and academics are built on. If a child is dysregulated while in school, they are not available to learn. It is our job to support students, educate them, and help them back to a place where they can access the curriculum. The importance of this cannot be emphasized enough. The role of the school adjustment counselor has historically been a role in which we work with all students, but more specifically at the Tier 1 and Tier 2 intervention level. For example, this expands from working with those students whose family member passed away over the weekend who are potentially dealing with loss and grief to a student experiencing suicidal ideation. We are regularly in classrooms teaching social and emotional skills to all general education and special education students, as well as leading small group lessons, focusing on the specific needs and teaching the necessary skills for those identified students. For all students, we create and implement PBIS initiatives to build on the sense of community within our schools. In addition, we cover lunch and recess duties to help ensure safety and positive behavior in the cafeteria and on the playground. We respond to in-the-moment crises, collaborate with the Department of Children and Families and other outside providers, provide case management, and we are in constant communication with teachers, behaviorists, other professionals, and families. Now, without warning, discussion, or training, some are becoming responsible for providing counseling service on IEP grids, a responsibility that has historically been the role of the school psychologist. With the addition of providing counseling services for IEP students, our Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventionalists will inevitably suffer. This will lead to an increase in the need for Tier 3 interventions in the long term because we were unable to provide responsive and proactive interventions rather than reactionary. In an email regarding the budget that Dr. Crowley sent to Woburn Public Schools staff on April 24th, 2023, he stated, "We have been meeting with a variety of stakeholders to listen to the needs of the school and departments to develop a budget that prioritizes social emotional health of students, targeted learning loss, and supporting family connection to our schools." To hear directly from Dr. Crowley that there would be an emphasis on social emotional learning was encouraging. Currently, in a post-pandemic culture, it is a time when social and emotional challenges are on the rise. In addition, some of us have been working without a psychologist in our buildings for the past year, forcing those of us to carry both caseloads. Yet, when the budget was made public, 2 adjustment counselor positions at the high school and the counseling and wellness director position were all eliminated. These cuts are contradictory to Dr. Crowley's above statement and vision. Who are the mental health stakeholders who were consulted when creating the new vision for the Counseling and Wellness Department? Why was it decided to cut the most necessary and vital piece to our social and emotional learning puzzle, who is our leader? Over the past 7 years, school adjustment counselors have been provided with essential clinical supervision by either Melissa Plowman, LMHC, and/or Kendra Simpson, LISC, SW. Last year, our department suffered a huge loss when the SAC supervisor, Melissa Plowman, was informed without warning that funding for her position would be cut. Melissa Plowman provided provided us with monthly and then bi-weekly supervision and support. She was an integral part of the district mental health consultation and training for years before this. Although the counseling department was confused and saddened by this decision, we accepted this change because Kendra Stinson was highly qualified to provide the same level of supervision and guidance. Kendra has provided us the time and confidential space for case consultation and to strengthen our skills through supervision, which is a vital part of our jobs and the work we do for our students day in and day out. Supervision is a time when school adjustment counselors are able to meet in a confidential space to seek the best advice and answers to some of our most complex students and cases. In order to achieve success in this method of ensuring all students get what they need, trust needs to be established and maintained, which has been a positive result in the past 7 years. It is not only vital but necessary for SACs, school adjustment counselors, to have this person of clinical mental health expertise to go to for counsel. The current counseling and wellness coordinator, Kendra Stinson, has a vast, extensive clinical experience in the field of school counseling and mental health. She assists in making difficult decisions that affect the safety and well-being of our students. Kendra has brought relevant training and clinical expertise to each and every one of us.
Excuse me 1 second. Just so we don't set a precedent.
Yeah.
You're at about 5 minutes.
Oh, no!
No,
Okay.
I just don't
Sorry.
want to, like, someone say, well, she spoke that long, so
Yeah.
if you can summarize, and I don't want to, hopefully it doesn't sound bad.
In closing, social and
we might-
emotional needs,
Sorry.
challenges and trends of students are fluid and constantly changing. Without a counseling and wellness coordinator position and the appropriate person to fill this position, school adjustment counselors will always be in responsive mode, which will lead to diminished time and proactive mode. Therefore, falling short of providing the support of our students so desperately need. By maintaining the position of counseling and wellness coordinator, school adjustment counselors will be in a better position to respond to minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour, day-to-day matters and crises in an effective and efficient way. By maintaining the full-time position of the counseling and wellness coordinator, Woburn Public Schools will be ensuring that we will be preserving ongoing student SEL success and in a better position to address SEL challenges that have yet to surface. SEL challenges are on the rise, so please, we are strongly encouraging you to retract the elimination of the counseling and wellness coordinator position. Please stop eliminating valuable positions and irreplaceable people and work with us to give our children what they deserve.
Thank you. And I know this is going to sound bad as well. If we could, I know everyone is going to want to applause. It does eat up a little time, and I'd rather hear from some folks. Maybe we can clap at the end for all the speakers. If we can just maybe do that, is that okay? All right, I appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Allison Van Deventer, and I'm the parent of a second grader at the Malcolm White and an incoming kindergartner next year. First, I'd like to thank the school committee for their hard work on this budget, especially after you all were forced to make unreasonable cuts to that budget after you had carefully designed it to meet the needs of Woburn students. I'd also like to thank the teachers of Woburn who work hard every day to make sure our kids get a good education in a caring environment. It's because of everything the teachers and counselors and everyone else does that the financial shortcomings of the district aren't more readily apparent to the casual observer. As we all know, we need a 12% budget increase simply to level fund the district, which amounts to a decrease in the ability to pay for what the district needs. And we need a 12% budget increase simply to level fund the district, and instead of that, the budget under discussion tonight gives us a 9.8 increase, which is a decrease in our ability to meet our needs. So this means the teachers and staff will be laid off and will lose important things like computer science in middle school in 2023. I could hardly believe it when I heard that. I look at the situation and I'm curious about why it exists. Maybe Woburn is just too poor to appropriately fund schools. I'm starting to suspect that this is in fact the case. Maybe we just don't have the money. It isn't there. If so, how did we get to this point? Who's responsible? Why aren't we talking about this to Woburn voters in more straightforward language? And what is Woburn going to do to fix the situation going forward? Or maybe that's not the explanation. Maybe Woburn isn't too poor, but instead the city is deliberately underfunding the schools. This, too, seems plausible. We might have the money, but Woburn is choosing to chop vital pieces out of our schools rather than use this money. And our children and teachers are paying the price. Not in some hypothetical future, but next year. And it should go without saying that either way, whatever the explanation is, I'm appalled. Either explanation suggests mismanagement of the city's funds. Today I haven't come with a specific request. I'm just here to express how utterly frustrated I am that I have to spend my scarce free time examining budgets and advocating for funding just to try to make sure that my kids' district can function properly. I would really rather be home putting my kids to bed, they're back in the back of the room right now, or maybe grieving the friends I lost to a white supremacist mass shooting this past weekend. As a parent and a voter, I want schools that are well-funded. We all know we aren't getting that in Woburn this year. I had hoped at one point that we could compromise with schools that were adequately funded, but we aren't getting that either. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Does this work?
It's for cable.
But will it work for out here? Or do I just need to project?
You need to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. Tom Hess, 28 Lawrence Street, Woburn. I will say my comments, I expected the mayor to be present in the audience. I attended the school committee meeting last Thursday, hoping to better understand the concerns regarding the substantial fiscal year 2024 budget cuts proposed by Mayor Galvin. Superintendent Crowley gave an update on the budget negotiations. I was hopeful for good news. That is not what happened. Superintendent Crowley informed everyone present that at 10 a.m. meeting on Thursday morning, Mayor Galvin requested to further cut $1 million from the school budget. To my horror, Superintendent Crowley then proceeded to give an itemized list of additional cuts to satisfy this request from Mayor Galvin. Mayor Galvin, enough is enough. I am embarrassed that our city leadership will not acknowledge that education for any community is its basis for success. In my 12 years of involvement with Woburn schools, I have nothing but respect for the hard work our teachers put in every single day. 3 years ago, Woburn schools closed due to COVID. To their immense credit, teachers and staff, Superintendent Crowley, and the school committee worked tirelessly to give our students a semblance of normalcy. They put in heroic effort to ensure that every student had a laptop and internet access. Teachers worked overtime revising lesson plans for remote learning. They made sure every student could access education, even at a scary and uncertain time. In my opinion, our teachers deserve the same accolades given to doctors, nurses, and first responders. Mayor Galvin is taking away teachers' funding instead of rewarding them for their heroism. I am alarmed that after the controversial teacher contract negotiations ended just about 2 months ago, we are back with similar controversy surrounding Mayor Galvin and negotiations for the school budget. I know the Woburn City Charter allocates all power to the mayor. Why do we elect the school committee if their opinion and guidance will be ignored? School committee member Dr. Wells last Thursday bluntly stated, why bother putting forth any demands when Mayor Galvin will just do what he wants? I want to caution Mayor Galvin that furthering his own agenda while ignoring opinion of the community you serve is reckless. As mayor, you are elected to serve the needs for the community, not your individual needs. Concerning the current contract negotiations, I asked the mayor to agree to a budget that avoid all layoffs. To Mayor Galvin, the layoffs are likely just a number on a spreadsheet. I want to remind Mayor Galvin that this number represents a person whose livelihood you are about to impact. Last Thursday, it was painful to hear school committee members negotiating which planned layoffs should be reconsidered. Concerning the budget cuts beyond layoffs, I want to revisit the itemized cuts that Superintendent Crowley identified for the additional $1 million budget cut. This list of cuts seem to impact many small budget items that are funded to benefit students and families. One budget cut in particular stood out, the money set aside to help with testing fees. Mayor Galvin, this type of budget cut would disproportionately impact students and families with the highest need. Concerning the additional budget cuts beyond layoffs, I have this to say. Mayor Galvin, suspend all proposed budget cuts. These short-sighted decisions will impact the quality of education in Woburn in the future. Everyone here has seen the growth in our community, such as on Woburn Heights, development on Route 38, the ongoing development, Washington Street and I-93 interchange, the growth at the Woburn Mall area. This substantial residential growth will translate to more students in our schools as families choose to make Woburn their home. Cutting any number of staff will lead to larger class sizes and increased competition for limited resources. This can only lead to one outcome. The quality of education in Woburn will be negatively impacted. The staff targeted for layoffs know their job and they know the system. It is far less cost-effective to add staff in the future who will need training and time to be effective contributors. Mayor Galvin, keep the staff we have now. Mayor Galvin, your historical decisions have left our school budget in desperate need for a correction. I see that the original budget increase for fiscal year 24 was 14.5%. Woburn's previous school budgets have already been underfunded for years. Last Thursday, I repeatedly heard the term "make do" used by school committee members. After many years of make do, it is time to make the right decision and fund the school budget properly. If that means a 14.5% increase, then that is what needs to happen. No one should be asked to make do any longer. Mayor Galvin, make the right decision. I would like to close with a slightly modified, iconic political statement from U.S. history. Ask not what Woburn can do for you, Mayor Galvin. Ask what you can do for Woburn.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak, please?
Are those your glasses?
Oh, your
Hey,
glasses.
your glasses.
Mr. Hess, your
Give up your
glasses.
glasses.
Your glasses.
Again, if we could try to, kind of time it out a little bit.
Why don't you let him get his glasses? He didn't hear you.
Yeah, sir?
Sir, your glasses
Mr.
are
Hess,
here.
your glasses are up here.
Hello, my name is Rena Mazur, and I am a parent of twins at the Shamrock. I am also an educator. I would like to thank the school committee members here, the superintendent, and also express my disappointment that Mayor Galvin is not here any longer to hear from the community. I can tell you from my perspective as a parent and an educator that schools right now are not what they were. I would like to echo Julie Urquhart for the deep need for social emotional support. I disagree with Mayor Galvin that the sort of recovery time from COVID is gone. Students before us are different than they were. They need our support, our attention, and our funding. If we believe in public education, and I hope everyone that we elect in this city does, we need to prioritize WPS in our city's budget. The mayor's proposed budget does not provide level funding, even if it provides an increase from this year to next. Despite the fact that the city has the money to provide that funding, I was a little nauseous listening to the presentation, looking at the reserve funds. If today is not a rainy day for our students, what indeed is? Level funding allows Woburn students to continue offering our youth both what they deserve, specials like gym, art, music, and also what they are legally required to get. FAPE, as those of us education know, means a free, appropriate public education. This means financial aid for things like testing. It means social and emotional supports, and it means special needs supports as well. The cuts would make deep sorry, I'm losing my place here. This would force deep cuts to all of these places, not only putting that legal obligation in jeopardy, but targeting our most vulnerable and needy students. As an educator, I have watched schools struggle over the past few years to cope with the increasing needs of students across the board. As a point of comparison, at my own school, despite budgetary challenges that we have been facing, the town and school committee have found a way to add a minimum next year promised to us of 10 FTEs, full-time positions, next year. It is shocking and shameful that the mayor would cut from the WAPS funding, particularly when we have the money. I have never been prouder of our Woburn educators than this year. They work tirelessly to provide for our children, our future. A level-funded budget is the minimum that we can provide to support their work and honor their contributions to our community. Budget represents priorities. Please show the educators, parents, and especially the children that they are our priority in this community.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hello, my name is Isabel Calixto, and tonight I'd like to speak on behalf of my sister, Anissa Calixto. And although my words may sound biased, I ask everyone to respect my judgment as a professional and an educator at Woburn High for 12 years. My sister and I are both graduates of Woburn High and have deep connections to this community. My grandmother was a secretary in this building for many years. An incredible strength of our district is the fact that Woburn teachers inspire students who graduate from our schools to return and teach here. I was inspired by many teachers over the years, but two in particular were fundamental to my career choice, Mr. Lynch at the Kennedy and Robert Nickerson at Woburn High. When I began teaching, I believed that if I could become a fraction of the educators that they were, I would have a successful career with the students of Woburn. My sister had similar experiences during her time as a student here, and when she recently returned home from Los Angeles, I asked her about her plans, and she stated she wanted to teach English at Woburn High. She excitedly took a position with 2 days' notice during the pandemic and performed admirably during one of the most difficult times to be in this profession. She then took a job at the Joyce for maternity leave, and upon leaving, she was showered with a litany of cards and well wishes from her students. The day she was hired for a full-time position at Woburn High last year is inscribed in my memory. She came to my hallway with a beaming smile and informed me and my colleagues of the good news. When I asked her what she was most excited about, she told me it was the possibility that she would teach and reconnect with some of the students from her previous position at the Joyce. Just last week, I had the opportunity to watch her work in her classroom, and I was astounded to see how well her lesson went. The professionalism she exuded was amazing, and before class, a few girls were excited to discuss recent news about a lesson she delivered concerning Emmett Till and the recent passing of his accuser. I felt like I had watched someone who had taught for years, not somebody in the early stages of her career. And at the end of her lesson, the first word she uttered to me was, "Am I a good teacher?" The very fact that she asked that question illustrates that she is a good teacher, because no matter how hard we work, we are always thinking about how we could be even better at our jobs and hone our skills to benefit our students. Unfortunately, the memory that is now inscribed in my mind is the sound of her voice when she called me and informed me that she was being let go. Over 12 years, I've had a wonderful career, and I'm proud to work here. Standing with my union colleagues in a strike was one of my proudest moments because I know what we fought for was ethical and just, and we had a majority of support from the community. I'm not going to sweet-talk this anymore. A significant percentage of staff have no confidence in this committee, no confidence in the superintendent, and no confidence in this mayor. These cuts are the product of a vindictive and callous individual, and I pray we see a change in leadership come next election. Anissa Calixto is an incredibly talented educator, and that is an asset that can never be accounted for in a budget. Future students will be robbed of her encouragement, guidance, and professionalism if this issue is not rectified. Our community is not in a dire financial predicament. I implore this committee to actually show some backbone and utilize whatever powers at your disposal to do what is right on behalf of not only my sister, but all employees who were crushed by this news last week.
My name is Jaden T. McMaster. I'm a student of Woburn Memorial High School, class of 2024, or at least soon to be. I'm here today to ask and elaborate on a question I'd like to pose to the school committee, and with little faith you'll truly listen to me, our Mayor Scott Galvin. And I see that that little faith was founded in logic as he has already departed. The question is somewhat rhetorical in nature, I'll warn. What circumstance could there possibly be that would genuinely justify these multi-million-dollar cuts to the district's budget? I mean, to expand on this point, Woburn is undoubtedly a city on the grow in both population and income. As such, we have been able to afford important things such as the newly built Woburn Fire Headquarters, which has been under construction, or at least planned, since I moved here 8 years ago. As such, we have been able to, I apologize. The city has an excellent quality of life with a flourishing downtown, and yet we refuse to put money towards perhaps the most important thing we know, education. Cuts like these will deprive a necessary resource, with some in particular being more painful than others. I will offer a concession to the committee, though, two, in fact. The first is, of course, the time they were given for these cuts. A matter of days for the first, or even 10 hours, to make vast slashes to our budget means some rash decisions must be made. That's entirely the fault of Mayor Galvin, who, at least from my perspective, is making these cuts in an act of petty vengeance for the teacher strike a few months ago. Even from the outside looking in, it's definitively clear that these slashes, and the short period of time needed to make them, were deliberate, punitive actions. Beyond that is the apparent disconnect between the committee and the actual district. To clarify on this, let's take an exercise in the more absurd. The $40,000 cut to AP line items. While viewed harshly by most, I believe one committee member actually supported this decision beyond a financial standpoint. Dr. John Wells, I believe. I'll make an exact quote to what you said last week in reference to this cut to AP exams. When people have a stake in the game, it's easier for them to, be higher achievers, which you then repeated moments later when you said, when you have a little money in the game, it makes people perform better. And if anyone in the audience would like to hear those phrases again for themselves, the timestamp for them on the recording by the Woburn Public Media Center is roughly 1:51:06. These remarks showcase a deep, deep disconnect between your choices and the district's needs. See, Dr. Wells, I have many friends who took AP courses this year and will take more next year. These people, these students, they're the most hardworking and dedicated people I know. If you're under the impression that they don't already have enough on the line for these exams, you're dead wrong. They have had hours upon hours of working and studying, nearly sleepless nights, and the deepest anxieties regarding their success. Their minds, almost all the time, hinge on these classes and their exams. It's what's going to shape their futures, after all. So, Dr. Wells, if that is not enough...
We're not going to direct to any of the school committees, just make a statement.
This is concluding that part of the...
You can't direct it to anyone in particular, unless it's the superintendent itself. That's just, can't do it.
Well, I could just cut out the Dr. Wells part, after all.
Okay.
If that's not enough of a stake to have in the exams, what is? What other justification does the committee have for that cut and the many others made to fit this budget that the mayor made in such a vindictive nature? The truth of this matter is, as was the obvious to the answer to the question that I proposed in the beginning, and that is there is no justification for these cuts being made. There is no justification for the mayor sending out this budget goal last week with only 10 hours to conform. There is no justice, period. So I implore the school committee to reject this budget. If they don't, then I at least ask one thing of everyone here today. Do not let this happen again. Don't allow the mayor to prioritize ego over education.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak, please?
Hi, my name is Summer, and I'm a junior at Woburn Memorial High School. I am a little bit disappointed because I feel that everyone should hear everyone's side of the story, and I hope the mayor is watching this. These cuts will impact students like me the most. I am a student with relatively high emotional needs. I am in the Bright program at our school. As a person who struggles with crippling anxiety and depression, it has been hard for me to connect with adults who want to help me. However, after many years of going through different therapists, guidance, and adjustment counselors, I found an adjustment counselor who has helped me get through my toughest challenges this year. Imagine my reaction when I found out that she will not be here next year due to budget cuts. Next year, I will have to start over with someone new. These cuts are directly impacting some of the most vulnerable populations at our school. By cutting any paras, you are taking away trusted connections that have taken time to build. In case you didn't know, suicide is the second leading cause of death in teens. An article released by the University of Rochester Medical Center says, high schools where students are most connected to peers and adult staff and share strong relationships with the same adults have lower rates of suicide attempts. These cuts will also force class sizes to increase because we are losing teachers. When class sizes are bigger, it is harder for teachers to make those valuable connections with their students. Everyone's home life is different, and not every student is lucky enough to have a family member at home that they can talk to. That is why it is so important to have mental health professionals and appropriate student-faculty ratios in our school. We should be increasing that number, not decreasing. How am I supposed to trust that these are the only cuts? Will I lose any more of my teachers? And all I ask is when you make decisions about letting go of our faculty, you think about the students you are hurting, like me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Derek Genova. I have 2 children in the Woburn Public Schools, 4th and 2nd grade, and I've been in town, lived here. I'm not one of those born in Woburn, but I've been here about 12 years, and really just once I would really like the city to prioritize education. It always seems like it's just enough. What can we do? And it's really a problem. And I know a lot of you on the school committee. I know you've worked very hard on this budget. You made a lot of tough decisions. And to have the mayor do his usual last minute, hey, cut this too, which seems to be a yearly thing, is just not really acceptable. And I had hoped to talk to him tonight. He's not here. Oh, well, my job here is to talk to you. I looked at his slides. I understand his point of view and what's going on with that, but one of the slides really spoke to me, called out about the levies, was about preventing excessive school budgets and things like that. And to me, nothing about these budgets has ever been excessive. I mean, far from it. So ultimately, yes, he makes a decision, but your job is to advocate for the schools and the students. And so part of that is putting forth a budget that is going to work for the students, whether it meets his needs or not. He needs to feel the pressure somehow, and if he's not going to be here to take it personally, then you by proxy are the ones who need to do it. And the school committee, the city council, everyone else needs to join in on that, because what is happening here, that slide spoke completely to his priorities. Budgets are a priority, where you allocate the money. Whether it's from free cash or whatever, that's $600,000 towards capital, why can't that come from free cash? There's money available. He just has to want to use it. And again, I urge you as a school committee, advocate for the schools, advocate for the students, push back. That's your job. Thank you.
Boa noite, meu nome é Amy Cardoso e eu moro em 29 Rua de Arlington. Eu sou uma professora de inglês nessa escola secundária no Woburn. Estou em frente hoje a defender famílias e estudantes que falam português. E precisa uma pessoa na escola que pode comunicar com eles. E para muitos que precisam, essa pessoa na WMHS é Anna Roque. What I just said was, my name is Amy Cardoso, and I live at 29 Arlington Road. I'm an English teacher at a high school here in Woburn. I'm in front of you tonight to defend our Portuguese-speaking families and students who need someone at school who can communicate with them. And for many of those who need it, that person at WMHS is Anna Roque. For a long time at the high school, I was the only Portuguese speaker in the building. I was frequently asked by administration to interpret during parent meetings, to assist students seeking help from a nurse, and to translate important documents for the school. I am so grateful that more Portuguese speakers have been hired at our school in the past few years, like Anna Roque and others of whom you'll hear from tonight. Cutting the position of the front desk secretary at WMHS will have immediate consequences to not only students and families, but to our school as well. Building safety is something that many people in administrative positions throughout the district claim to be deeply concerned about. So why would we get rid of the front line set of eyes at the biggest and busiest school in the city? The other admin assistants have their own tasks and responsibilities to do every day. The front desk secretary is the one that buzzes people in and out of the building, helps students sign in late or be dismissed, makes announcements throughout the day, answers emails on the school's main telephone line, acts as an intermediary of communication between any staff present in the main office and other staff that might be up in their classrooms, and so much more. We are fortunate enough to have someone at WMSS who speaks English, Portuguese, and Spanish, enabling her to effectively communicate with ML students and families all day long. It may seem like we have too many admin assistants at WMHS on paper, but please come to our school and stay an entire day to realize that all of them have distinctly different roles and are critical to the success of staff, students, and families. Just last Friday, there was a school shooting threat that circulated around the state and was ultimately proven to be a hoax. However, the threat was made online in Portuguese and shared by some parents to each other in an abundance of caution. Anna spent the majority of the morning on the phone and in person with 17 Portuguese-speaking parents or guardians who were calling to check on the situation or arriving to dismiss their children. 17 in one day. If her position is eliminated and she's transferred to another school, who does that in the future? Who fields those calls and calms those shaken parents? Please don't call up to my classroom to come down and translate, because I'll be busy teaching the alternative education students and the possible 3 classes of mainstream English students that could be assigned to me next year. Which brings me to my next point, the WMHS English teacher position that I spoke about at last Thursday night's meeting. Cutting this position hurts many students, Anissa Calixto's and mine. She is a kind, funny, hardworking young woman who, as Mary DeLuna outlined in her remarks last week, has stepped up and answered the call for Woburn Public Schools no matter what position or role has been asked of her over the last few years. Why should the students lose her to save a measly $59,000 in an $80 million budget? For Teacher Appreciation Week, I had the Peak Alternative Education students write letters of gratitude to educators that have influenced or helped them throughout the district. A few of them chose to write to the staff of our program, expressing how they need us to make it through high school and how we are considered family to them. If Anissa's job is cut and I'm forced to take on the additional workload of 3 mainstream English classes, these students will suffer during the school day when I am unavailable to attend to the many therapeutic and social emotional needs that led them to placement within the program to begin with. Alternative education is a critical part of keeping some WMHS students from dropping out, which would adversely affect their own lives as well as hurt our school's statistics with the state. Others might not say it, but some of us feel that it's hard to believe that the many proposed cuts to the WPS budget are not direct retaliation for union actions over the past year. Elected officials, I implore you, do not punish the students and families of this city because you're mad at us. Find the money and do the right thing. Save positions and people throughout the district. After all, what is told to educators around the country when they are questioned about anything? Do it for the kids. Thank you.
Boa noite a todos. Me chamo Jessica Maguire Peretti, do 8 Butaro Road. Eu sou mãe de uma aluna de Kennedy Middle School e uma aluna do Malcolm White Elementary School. E também sou professora de inglês como segunda língua na Woburn Memorial High School. Eu sou do Woburn e fui uma aluna na Malcolm White e Kennedy como meus filhos. E me formei na Woburn High School em 1996. Aprendi português porque meu marido Douglas é brasileiro e quero entender o idioma da família dele. Cada dia aprendo mais português, espanhol, haitian crioulo e os outros idiomas dos meus alunos quando estou ensinando inglês. Eles descreverão meu português como fofo. When we visited Brazil, this level of language has been very helpful, but not really enough to get by without help. Every interaction, from going through customs to making a purchase at a shop or cafe, is fraught with anxiety. Will they understand me? Will I understand them? Will something go wrong and I'll embarrass myself and cause a huge problem? Imagine having this feeling at your child's school. That is what my students' parents and my students themselves feel every time they contact our schools. When they walk in the door, when they call. They're terrified to call. One of the only things that comforts them is when we let them know someone answering the phone or greeting them at the door can speak their language. That person at Woburn Memorial High School is Anna Rock. This is not just limited to Anna's ability to speak language, though. It is all the admin assistants, all the secretaries. Everyone who spent 5 minutes in a school knows that the secretaries are the heart of the school. When I began in Woburn Public Schools in the 1980s, the first person I met when touring the Malcolm White was Mrs. Wells. And she was always a bright greeting every day for every student at that school. And nobody who attended Malcolm White in the 80s could deny what I've said. All of our admin assistants play a vital role at Woburn Memorial High School. And every day I make their job harder by forgetting to send in attendance, after which they have to track down half of my students who either walked past and didn't sign in when they were tardy, or whose parents did not call them to report an absent because they're terrified. At Woburn Memorial High School alone, we currently have 161 English learners and students who are being monitored. There's quite a few more who exited the program in middle school and elementary school. So you can imagine how many parents who don't speak English in our district. The vast majority, we have 15 languages represented, but the vast majority are Portuguese and Spanish. What we need at our schools is more bilingual staff, not fewer. As it is, any bilingual staff is constantly pulled from their positions, from what they're doing to help out the staff that desperately needs the translation just to get something across with the students. As has been addressed before, the front desk is also the first line of security at our school. If there's fewer secretaries there answering the phone, what do I do when a student in my classroom is having a medical emergency? If they're too busy covering other positions, how are they going to help that student? When a fight breaks out, when a retired teacher substitute is watching a class and she can't get through to anyone because the secretaries are spread too thin to answer all those phone calls, what is she going to do? As the last point, as a native of Woburn and as a teacher at the schools, I was so disappointed and a little bit ashamed to see so many cuts to our neediest programs. I've heard so much about social emotional tonight, and then I see cuts to, for example, transitional ed. Gretchen Pollard Ramos does not only help her students during the workday, she helps in the dark of the morning, she helps late at night, and she is also the person who helps our LGBTQ students the most and has grown the Spectrum Club beyond the borders of the schools into the entire community. I can't imagine. In addition, Amy Cardoso will not be able to effectively help her peak students if she is teaching 3 mainstream English classes. That shows a disservice to what English teachers do every day, to think that she can do 2 full-time jobs. Gracias, obrigada, merci.
Hello, my name is Adam Leani. I live on Beach Terrace. I was a recent graduate of Woburn Memorial High School. I wanted to speak tonight because I see our teachers in a different way than the school committee might be able to. Mrs. Cardoso, a teacher in the PEAK program, will be seriously impacted by this proposal. She was the head of an all-inclusive club called Embrace, and they made massive strides in the school system. That being said, that club under Mrs. Cardoso is an incredibly safe place for students of all races, genders, and religion. I specifically look at religion because recently Mrs. Cardoso helped facilitate a prayer room for students inside of the high school. This is something that is not seen on the paper, but it has an impact on tens and honestly hundreds of high school students at Woburn Memorial High School. I ask that you look past what is on the paper and the bottom line. Thank you.
My name is Juliana Long. I'm a sophomore at Woburn High. I'm here to speak on behalf of my teachers a little bit with everything going on. I'll start by saying that we all know that Woburn has enough money to be correctly funding our school systems. Cutting teachers simply because the mayor doesn't want to prioritize my and every student's education is not the answer. Mayor Galvin has shown time and time again that he does not prioritize students or their education, and equally he does not prioritize our teachers. Over the last week, I've heard my peers express their anger with the budget cuts because of the relationships that they formed with the teachers that were affected. It's saddening to see as a student what's happening simply because the mayor won't hear the voices of those whom his actions affect. It's equally extremely unproductive to be lessening the amount of mental health resources and therapeutic programs that are available to students. This is especially so given the rise of mental health issues after the pandemic, as we are in the midst of a mental health crisis that's impacting every corner of the country. So rather than taking away people's jobs and livelihood, the school committee could vote this down, essentially giving the mayor no other choice but to present the teachers with a better budget. Speaking as a student and a daughter of a teacher, please make the decision that you and I both know is the right one. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Belinda Smith, 8 Salem Ave. At last week's meeting, Dr. Wells referenced on more than one occasion that we need to work within the reality. This evening, the mayor just spoke about some of realities of the budget and then proceeded to shut down any ideas or feedback from the committee on how to think creatively around funding schools. So here is the reality. The mayor is using the budget to take retaliation on the teachers for the strike. The city continues to operate at a surplus, and it can absolutely afford to give us at least a level-funded budget increase. Instead, the mayor acted in a completely unprofessional way, yet again, and did not give the school committee a budget number to work with until last Monday. He then followed that up by slashing another $1 million from our budget last Wednesday morning. This is simply unacceptable behavior. At the end of my statement, I will list 11 of the proposed cuts that represent real individuals and a budget line item that would have an immediate and palpable impact on students' daily lives. For reference, these proposed cuts would equate to a savings of $828,027. The way I see it, the school committee has two options this evening. They could do the right thing and reinstate these cuts and flatly reject the mayor's unreasonable 11th hour additional cut of $1 million. If they cannot do that because they lack either courage or conviction, then they must consider reinstating those cuts and instead eliminating the remaining curriculum coordinators and STEM coaches, individuals who add up to more than the proposed budget cuts, who have little to no interaction with students, have done very little to positively impact staff. Furthermore, given that these are recently added positions within the last 6 years, we already know that we, the people in the classroom, can achieve student success without them. So if cuts must be made, this is where they should be focused. Members of the school committee, it is time to stop cowering before the mayor. Do the job you were elected to do and advocate for the well-being of Woburn students by not allowing this bullying from City Hall to continue. the positions that should be reinstated: coordinator of wellness, high school social worker, high school learning center teacher, high school science teacher, high school English teacher, high school transitional ed teacher, 2 high school secretary positions, including multilingual front desk staff, the Kennedy Middle School Resource Room teacher, the Joyce Middle School Resource Room teacher, the Middle School Computer Science program, and reinstatement of funding for AP exams. As Kelly Curran stated last week, it's time for you all to find the courage to lead. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Minot. I am a student of the Woburn Memorial High School PEAK program, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the PEAK students. PEAK has had a crucial impact on my life. I would have dropped out without the support of the PEAK program and staff. The PEAK staff have and always will go above and beyond for us. They've made school enjoyable for the first time in my life. Every teacher has played a role in my everyday emotional and academic needs. They've helped me find and keep a job. They're giving me what I need to thrive emotionally and academically, and that I would never have had in mainstream classes. They've helped me form obtainable goals and are currently helping me reach them. The PEAK program and staff play a substantial role in the school and Woburn community. They take on kids with the most vulnerable needs and that need the extra support. The PEAK program keeps the dropout rate low, motivating and personalizing education to best suit the students. It helps create functioning members of society, helping to provide job opportunities through work study. They provide the necessities like food, clothing, transportation, and social activities, including the art projects, physical activities, outside time, more freedom in a safe, relaxed setting, rather than a typical classroom. Cutting our funding will cut all of the tools that make PEAK so successful. We will lose our teachers, their time, their support, their attention. We will lose our funding for all the resources, whether it be the necessities or the recreations. Time and attention are some of the most pivotal things you can give to students, and this cut will be taking that away from us. The PEAK program prides itself on being a family. We need as many people on our team as possible, and PEAK provides that for us. It gives family and support to those that don't have it on the outside of the school setting. We throw holiday parties like a Thanksgiving dinner to give means of celebration to an otherwise lonely day. We will lose 2 of our teachers, Bobby Hastry, Aaron Barrett, to a different program. We will lose 2 more teachers, Amy Cardoso and Doug Connolly, for half of the day while they take on mainstream classes. We can't get the emotional and academic support we would if the teachers stayed in PEAK. Taking on PEAK classes along with mainstream classes is a sure way to have burnt-out teachers who can't provide the enthusiasm to learn. The personal relationships we've built throughout the years as a PEAK student will be taken away. Family has the most influence on child development, and the family we've built in PEAK will be split up. These staff are more than English, math, science, and history teachers. They are our family, our support system. These meetings and debates are a constant reminder to our educators that you don't value their role in our school. This is a reminder that you don't value our education, and it's especially a slap in the face to the PEAK kids. It reiterates that our educators are the only ones rooting for our success. Thank you.
Hi, I am Lauren Bakari, Woburn resident and school adjustment counselor for grades 10 and 12 at the high school. I recognize that it is necessary to assess our budget, trim waste, and allocate resources appropriately in the district. As you weigh your options, I'd like to speak directly about the school social worker, adjustment counselor, and SEL curriculum coordinator positions that were cut from the budget. Woburn's own Behavior Youth Risk Survey, conducted in 2021, reported that more than half of high school students reported feelings of anger, sadness, worry, numbness, or frustration in reaction to the coronavirus. Today, we still feel the residual effects of this, with student referrals up for services and with individual cases being more extreme, especially with the demand for professional counseling outside of school for students far exceeds what is available. And I really applaud and commend Summer, a previous student who actually put a face to that statistic. So thank you, Summer, for doing that. To date this year, myself and the other high school grade-based adjustment counselor, who Summer mentioned, have seen 86 students for safety screens, for suicidal ideation or a suicide plan. As of today, we share 168 direct referrals. This number excludes a percentage of 504 students who can access us or guidance as needed, and it excludes students not on our caseloads but who require immediate attention for various circumstances. This number also does not reflect referred students who require access to their social worker adjustment counselor outside of scheduled meeting times. With 35 periods in a work week and additional admin meetings plus case management, I can confidently say I'm not doing my best work in meeting all needs. My intention with all this is not to talk about me, but to highlight that cutting any social worker adjustment counselor position would have a detrimental effect on student access to support. Students will get less attention, and it will put additional pressure on teachers and existing school counseling staff, including special ed, who would need to take on more responsibilities with students with complex needs. It will not help with prevention, which will end up costing the district and city more in the long run. I know there was no ill will intended, but a comment last week that a high school guidance counselor could compensate for the loss of a social worker adjustment counselor position is misleading. Guidance counselors serve a different role and have a different set of demands. They can certainly address certain social emotional needs, but they, among other staff, refer their students to a social worker adjustment counselor if a student requires ongoing attention with their health, self-care, or an unpredictable circumstance. We are interventionists. We support struggling students. We support students struggling with emerging or chronic mental health, address trauma, LGBTQ plus needs, substance abuse, behavioral challenges, and share resources. I understand that the district is looking at new ways to allocate social worker adjustment counselor positions at the high school, but it's imperative that any plan include the current number of social workers, not less. Last, our curriculum coordinator, Kendra Stinson, has 20-plus years of SAC experience and has been invaluable, offering curriculum guidance, clinical supervision, training, and leadership. Losing that role will undermine our ability to stay current with effective strategies and procedures for us to work proactively with students. Please invest in all our instructional and support staff who make a direct impact on student success and well-being. I want to urge all stakeholders to relook at positions at all levels and to really rethink any money that is being diverted away from staff who have direct contact with students. Thank you for any consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nancy Ripple. I have 2 children at the Reeves School. My oldest daughter is in the 5th grade and will be moving to the Joyce in September. My youngest daughter has Down syndrome and is in the 3rd grade and is part of the PALS program, special ed program. We have loved having her at the Reeves School. It is such a special program, and I hope it will not ever be cut or moved away. She has been with her PT, OTs, and speech and her paras since kindergarten. She takes part in general ed classes as well, and for specials and other activities, and has friends at school and is loved by her classmates and her teachers. She feels very welcome there and has grown so much and made great progress with all of her teachers. My older daughter is also on an IEP and receives support from speech as well as the resource specialist. She has also made wonderful progress because of the extra education support she's able to get. To cut any support from the special education department would be a huge disservice to students like my daughters. Please consider the specialized needs of a not so small group population of students as you make your decisions about the budget. We all know that it is easy to cut something out, but when the need arises, and it will arise, it was much harder to add those cuts back in. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mia Poncia. I am a junior at Woburn High, and I have been in
I'm an alumni at the Bright program and am currently in the Peak program. And without the support that I get from my teachers, I don't think that I would be able to function at all. Like some of the other people have said, like, they make their day, and with the cutbacks that are happening, they won't be able to give time to the students that need it. I used to see the adjustment counselor. However, I needed more support, and a lot of the time when I went, she was already seeing someone, and taking away another adjustment counselor will just make it worse. And I'm scared of, if this is what's happening now, what's to come. If another program like Bright or Peak were to get more cuts and teachers' time being taken away from them, like, what's next, sort of a thing, and how will that affect the students? And yeah, basically. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Mary Paris. I live on 80 Kilby Street. I'm a parent of 2 children in the Woburn Public Schools. I'd like to start my comments by reading the mission statement of the Woburn Public Schools, which can be found on the school's website. Woburn Public Schools is an innovative district dedicated to the success of all students. Our students are diverse and resilient with a strong sense of community who are inspired to create change in the world. All stakeholders effectively communicate and advocate for the resources necessary to maintain and expand our technology, building infrastructures, personnel, and curriculum to prepare our students for their best future. My takeaway from this statement is that our district is committed to the success of all students. We want to see our students create change in the world, and all involved stakeholders have a responsibility to advocate for the necessary and equitable resources in an effort to support our students. Unfortunately, the tough reality that we're facing right now is the future of our public education system in Woburn is in jeopardy, particularly for our most vulnerable students. While I can fully appreciate the difficult position that the school committee is in because of the budget number that's been provided by the mayor, I am urging you all to consider your part to create change in the world, just like we want to see from our students as outlined in this mission statement. A budget isn't just about dollars, numbers, and line items. It reflects the priorities, goals, and intentions of that particular organization. The current budget proposal will have a direct impact on all of our students, staff, and the community. However, the most concerning impact is on our most vulnerable students. The Massachusetts Association of School Committees website online policy manual states that, quote, the majority of income for the operation of the public schools is derived from local property taxes, and the school committee will attempt to protect the valid interests of the taxpayers. However, the first priority in the development of an annual budget will be the educational welfare of the children in our schools. Budget decisions reflect the attitude and philosophy of those charged with the responsibility for educational decision-making, end quote. So, I'm asking you to please prioritize the educational welfare of our children. The decisions that we make now will have a direct impact on our future and the future of Woburn. Don't accept the current proposal. Stand up and create change in the world. Please do the right thing and advocate for our students. If we don't, who will? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Omar Mohudin. I live at 2 Webster Ave. Good evening, everyone. I spoke last week about this proposed budget, specifically highlighting the need for the school committee, the city council, and the mayor to support those who serve us. Tonight, I want to speak more about this. It's time for Woburn to listen to our teachers as well as our students. But we understand that no one wants to lay off teachers and make these harmful decisions. But tonight we find ourselves in that position. And the question is why? I've spoken with many educators in the Woburn Teachers Association. These are parents, these are people with 2 jobs, people who go day in and day out and support the future of our city. If teachers have something to say, we should listen. For instance, 2 things I'm hearing from teachers. Number 1, they want their massive debt to the city canceled. And number 2, they want gym twice a week at the elementary level. However, instead of talking about these priorities, teachers have to fight for their jobs. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to the Kennedy Middle School and meet with about 100 amazing students, 8th graders in a civics course, from a wide variety of diverse backgrounds. And while they're showing me how to do TikToks and we're talking about government and whatnot, I get to see that they need more opportunities, not less. They need more support, not less. I urge you all to listen to the Woburn Public School teachers and for a moment, try to put yourselves in their shoes. You may not be able to empathize with them because you may not be inside the classroom, but we can all sympathize. Our teachers are hurting. Listening is how we help them. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Jones. I'm at 4 Sherman Terrace. I've got 2 girls at the Kennedy School. One is rising to the high school next year. And I know I just want to thank everybody for the testimony that they've given tonight because this is a really hard budget. It's a really hard year. It's been a hard year. Unfortunately, it continues when we look at this and the amount of cuts that need to be taken. There are several concerns personally for my family, and I know I wrote to you all about this, and I've spoken to some committee members, but I want this really on the public record. I'm here to speak about the cut in the middle school computer science program. The elimination of this program was on the additional cuts tab, which was shown at the 5-4 presentation with the amount of $159,822. It was shared that it was a cut necessitated by the mayor's request for an additional $1 million taken out of the budget. My concern is that there was like 8 hours to consider that, and this is a really important program. It was alluded to the Market Basket shutdown today of the computers. I was at Market Basket and I heard people talking about it's the balloons flying in the sky that made the computer shut down. We need computer science, okay? Kids are given Chromebooks when they enter middle school, which I thought was fantastic because that's equity. It's empowering kids the opportunity to use technology tools that we're all using. We are preparing them for the future and for the real world. Many parents allow kids to have a cell phone once they start middle school to allow greater independence. Kids have a multitude of smart devices in their homes, but do they know how to use them, what they're doing? That is what the computer science class at the middle school level is teaching them. It's teaching them how these things work. What is programming? What is the data that's being collected? The logic of input and output. How we work in the modern world. Significant skill and logical thinking is required. Curriculum like the computer science program is meant to expose kids to hands-on learning and expose them to careers in computer science. A career in computer science is one of the things a kid can launch when they're in middle school or high school. Cutting the computer science program at the middle school level is harmful to our students and will set them back. Already, computer science in middle school is taught as a 1/3 year program. We're offering the bare minimum, and next year we won't have a program at all. So it's my request that you reconsider a way to get middle school computer science back in the budget. I know you're confronted with so many requests, and this is a really difficult consideration, but we're taking the keys to their future away from these children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Kuberry. I live at 6 Blake Street. I'm a Harold Wyman parent. First, I want to thank our administrators for working so hard to put together an initial budget request that moves our schools forward, supports our growing population of high-needs students, and supports a bright vision for the future of Woburn's children. I also want to thank our school committee for advocating on behalf of the students of Woburn. But this budget isn't enough. As has been discussed, Woburn Public Schools would require an increased appropriation of around 12% for a level-funded budget. So while the 9.8% increase seems to be an increase, it's in fact a decrease. We're cutting positions, losing materials, not funding professional development, and more. This is a step backwards. But I want to pull up a little higher from the weeds of this budget proposal and brainstorm about solutions for the future. I'm here tonight to ask for increased transparency and clearer communication around the budget moving forward. In talking with my friends and neighbors, I found that many residents don't understand the budget. This is also true for many of our city councilors that I've talked to. In fact, as you know, I've been to nearly every school committee meeting this spring and most of the subcommittee meetings, and I cannot clearly explain what we're adding to the budget and what we're cutting. The budget draft that was posted this week is simply a spreadsheet. It lacks details regarding specific cuts, and many of the figures are grouped together. It doesn't explain how a cut here impacts the program there. If one were to try to use the documentation provided on the district's website to fill in the gaps, they would find none. School committee minutes have not been posted since March 1st. Finance subcommittee minutes are extremely brief. Supporting documentation, including the presentations, are not linked. The result is that many people turn to Facebook for information, or simply go without. While much of this information was discussed at previous school committee meetings, it's not reasonable to expect families of young children to be able to attend each meeting. It's certainly not reasonable to expect families of young children to attend each finance subcommittee meeting, as these meetings aren't available recorded. What is reasonable is to ask the school committee and the school administration to provide more thorough documentation to the public, particularly in the lead up to budget season. It would be helpful to share Google slide presentations from the school committee meetings, as these can easily be linked in the already posted agendas. More impactful, however, would be to provide a full budget document, including narrative information explaining and justifying the budget request with data. The majority of our comparable districts, as outlined by Desi, have done this. Hudson, Medford, Barnstable, Stoughton, Agawam, Abington. I urge you to move forward in doing this. This allows you to put all the information that you shared in dribs and drabs throughout school committee meetings in one central place for all stakeholders to review with clear transparency. Our residents and city councilors can get behind more creative fiscal solutions to fully fund our schools if they have access to information firsthand. We all have a job to do in moving our schools forward. As parents, we want to fight for what our children need to succeed, but we can only do that if you provide us with the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Roque. I live in Woburn, and I currently work as an administrative assistant in the main office at Woburn Memorial High School. 2 of my 3 children have graduated from WMHS, and my youngest is currently a junior at the high school. I have worked in the school districts for 12 years, 6 of which I've been at the high school at my current role. My job is one of 2 jobs being cut at the high school. I strongly believe that going from 6 to 4 administrative assistants will absolutely have a huge impact on the day-to-day operations, support, and most importantly, school safety. At the high school, we have around 1,400 students and staff who walk through the front door every day. This does not include parents, substitute staff, volunteers, delivery people, maintenance staff, and many other visitors that we have each day. The main office is truly the heart of the school, and the flow of traffic through the office is constant every day. Every job being cut from the district is important and necessary, As the main office administrative assistant, my responsibilities are numerous. That, in addition to the important role of constant monitoring of the school cameras, monitoring of who is entering and exiting the building, monitoring hallway activity, and alerting the administration team or resource officer as needed. My fluency in Portuguese and Spanish has been a huge advantage working at the high school. The absence of a translator on the front lines is going to put a lot of pressure on other departments, such as guidance and nursing. As our community continues to grow more diverse, we have hundreds of students coming from different areas of the world, some who have little to no English. Knowing that I'm available for these students and their families puts them at ease. Cutting resources like this is putting our school community backwards instead of moving forward. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Van Edema. I live on Carolina Terrace. I am a lifelong Woburn resident. I graduated in 2003. That was the last time that I sat up here, and some of you have been in these seats since then, so good to see you again. This is also the second of these letters that I've written. The first went to all of you and went unanswered, which is rude, but here we are again. Same problem, different day. So, our children are in danger. Not if, when tragedy hits our hometown, we will wish we'd done something, taken action, spoken up. We saw the signs, walked past the writing on the wall, avoided the awful, terrifying truths about just how bad the situation has gotten and how much worse it can get. The kids are not okay. They are not safe, and they know it. Their biggest fears, bad guys with big guns, menacing monsters with limitless power and villainous intent, destroying all the good. Barren wastelands without books or art or trees or polar bears or happy endings are regularly realized. These are awfully big worries for little humans to carry back and forth in their bulletproof backpacks. The beloved, wise Mr. Rogers said, "When the world is scary, look for the helpers." He knew that in times of trouble, there would always be brave grown-ups working hard to make it better. He urged the anxious to open their eyes and take comfort in the collective action and community care that only comes in times of crisis. This generation has their heads on a swivel. Gone are the days of turning off the home's single TV when the chaos and carnage is too traumatizing for impressionable ears to hear and hearts to hold. Our young people are connected, logged in, awake, aware of the adults audibly arguing about failure and fault and footing the bill, while their friends and futures bleed out at their feet. Cause of death, massive systems failure. When children die, as they do often in this country, an embossed certificate, sadly similar to the ones they award at birth, and in recognition of important milestones reached or honors bestowed, serve as the official living record. In the provided space, the physician, coroner, or medical examiner is asked to formally declare the immediate cause of death. This can be an event, clinical condition, or disease process which is unsuitable for the continuation of life. With some specificity, I've watched enough procedural crime drama and supplemented with thoughtful internet due diligence to know that circumstances surrounding the death, the events and condition that lead to loss of life, are necessary to fully understand not just what happened, but how it happened. I have multiple complex invisible disabilities and a lengthy list of DSM diagnoses. Any of these conditions could, without proper treatment, support, and management, kill me. If I were to leave my psychiatrist's office or the pharmacy and be fatally struck by a school bus, the Office of Vital Statistics would classify my cause of death as accidental motor vehicle. The presence of active, life-threatening illness would not be relevant or reported. Alternatively, if I were struggling to find a provider that takes my insurance and has availability and/or left the pharmacy empty-handed because there is a nationwide shortage of critical psychiatric treatments, and I saw the bus coming and stepped in its path, that sad story changes. Suicide as a cause of death places the responsibility solely on the suffering. The official record would suggest that I alone was responsible for ending my life. But was I? This is not a cry for help, it is a call to action. In 2020, 87 children under the age of 12 died by suicide. The same year, 1,592 big kids, ages 12 to 17, ended their lives before they even really got started. That's more than the total number of Woburn Public School students currently enrolled in grades 8 through 12. This is not a new problem, nor is it a taboo topic to not be discussed. The experts all agree. Our children are suffering and they cannot see a way out or through the pain.
You're at 6.
Feels kind of important. I'll keep going. You let me know
They're all
when.
important, yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Dead kids. Let me just finish. Their brains haven't developed the parts they need to regulate emotion. Decision-making and impulse control, they are riddled with raging hormones. Everything feels like a catastrophe in that moment because it is a catastrophe. They need help. Where are the helpers? The danger doesn't start or end by the hands they painstakingly trace and turn into turkeys or press into clay. Guns, drugs, insufficient food, housing, and healthcare, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, reproductive access, trans rights, marriage rights, book bans, dragging drag, drowning in debt, melting ice, rising temps, explosive anger. Domestic terror, hoarded wealth, purchased power, problematic policing, and incest-like separation of church and state. Political unrest, supremely unjust systems, unchecked and unchallenged. Crises at all the borders, fences and walls where freedom and respite should be, artificial intelligence and presidentially propagated propaganda blurring any remaining truth. Filters on filters on filters. It's a shit show. The students who managed to survive the multi-system assault aren't surviving as much as they are sheltering in place.
We are at 7 minutes. We'll definitely keep that on record if you'd like to leave it with us. I'm not sure if there's any other speakers. If there are, then.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll just
to be
close
fair.
with,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
there are pages and pages and pages of data. You don't need any more data. These kids' lives are genuinely in your hands. And if you choose not to act, when something terrible happens, you will know that you had the chance to do something. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there Anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi, everyone. Christy Nickerson, 9 Jones Avenue. As most of you all know, I am a longtime teacher here in Woburn, and I'm so proud to be here with all of my colleagues who have so eloquently advocated for the positions that have been cut from this budget. I, on the other hand, have decided tonight to advocate for my children. As many of you know, about a month prior to the world shutting down, my family experienced a tremendous loss. I lost my husband, but more importantly, my children lost their dad. I cannot begin to tell you how important the adjustment counselors have been in my children's lives. You can probably sit here and imagine, because we've all lost people, the type of loss that we have experienced as a family, but I want you to consider how that loss has impacted the education of my children. I have 2 amazing kids, very bright and kind and compassionate. However, the loss and trauma that they have been through has greatly impacted them throughout their school career. There's been many times where they have had to access the adjustment counselors in order to access their education. They're not constantly seeing their adjustment counselors, but there are times where they need them. My concern as my son enters the high school is that we are cutting those resources. There are still adjustment counselors there. However, he's not a kid that goes to the adjustment counselor every single day, but inevitably he's going to need them. Will they be available for him when he does need them? You guys know me pretty well, and I call a spade a spade. These cuts, all of them are awful. But some of them are going to impact our kids more than others. So I'm asking you to take a look at these humans, not dollar amounts, and decidedly think about how is that going to impact all of our students. We've talked a lot about learning loss, and we've talked a lot about impact, but I want to remind you that COVID wasn't the only thing impacting families over the last several years. So think of those kids.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the school committee?
Good evening. My name is Barbara Locke, and I am a proud teacher and coach at Woburn Memorial High School and president of the Woburn Teachers Association. We are a united group. We prove that by standing up to this bully, knowing that when we did so on that Friday night, it was going to be tough. But we didn't back down, and we paid a price. But we have no regrets. In my discipline, we often say prevention before care. This could have been prevented. This should have been prevented. The pain and suffering that has happened to people, and there was no reason for it if we just listened to the experts. And with all due respect, these people are the experts. The people who work day in and day out with these young people, these young bodies, these young minds. You need to listen to us. If you listened to us, we wouldn't be in this place right now. I promise you. But I'm not here to find fault. It's not my nature, our nature. The Woburn Teachers Association is to make this public schools better. And we need you. We are a family. Dr. Crowley has said we need to mend. But we can't mend when we keep getting punched and kicked when we're down. We can't. So I hope and I pray as you go home to all the people who love you and you rest your head on your pillows, that you think about what this has done. And maybe you realize it was a mistake. We all make mistakes. But there's a chance to fix it. Stand up to this bully like we did. Tell him no. Tell him we're not going to take it. This is what we need. And we know what we need. And like I said, I hope and I sincerely pray that you do so. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the school committee? Okay.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing?
All right. Let me,
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Do I have all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, we need
Make a motion for a 5-minute recess?
5-minute recess, please. Thank you. Any opposed? All set. So the next item on the agenda is item number 5, vote to send the fiscal year 2024 budget to City Hall as the final budget, school committee's final budget.
Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to ask a few questions.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I didn't know if we were on the motion.
Well,
That's fine.
maybe some few questions before.
Sure, all right, so we'll go to that.
So my first question to the administration, and I know this came sort of out of my subcommittee, was a level-funded budget at 12-point-something%. I wonder if the administration could explain that, because I don't think that's truly the definition of what a level-funded budget is, the 12.5%. Whatever it was.
Sure, I can do that. Yep. By definition, a level-funded budget simply means that when you turn your budget over, all line items are funded at the amount that they were the previous fiscal year. You can also further define that as the personnel that you had in the previous fiscal year, you have the same personnel, and you increase salaries based on contractual obligations. So that is the true definition of a level-funded budget. We had developed...
And could you just tell us what that percent would have been if it was a true level-funded budget?
It would have probably been in the neighborhood of 4 or 5%.
Okay,
there would have been about a 3.5% increase of salaries, and there would be some other minor things that you'd have to increase. We had developed the finance committee and the school committee. I think we presented at one of those, or perhaps both of those meetings, what we had defined as a hybrid or a modified rollover. That was simply taking the budget, rolling it over. We increased line items, certain line items, some substantially, and at that time it included a number of new positions and their salaries, and that modified budget, if you will, I think was 12% or 12% and change.
And just, Chairman, I just, I'm sorry that my subcommittee that wasn't fully explained. You probably understood it at the committee level, but maybe it didn't get clearly emphasized to the public. And so they've been, the word is that the level funded was going to be 12.5%.
Yeah, I sort of further clarify a little bit. And Mr. Akanada, correct me if I'm wrong. The positions that you're talking about that were added into the sort of the rollover, these were positions that were viewed as legally required or positions that were necessary in order to make sure we were in compliance. So these were not these weren't positions that we could necessarily do without, right? Because as I recall it in the subcommittee, the 12% number was attached to a budget that was a level-funded budget that met all of our contractual and legal needs.
I think that's an accurate statement, that some of those positions were mandated or required.
Okay. So it would be very difficult for us to operate with the same personnel at less than that figure.
That's what I'm told by the educators.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear, sort of to clarify.
I had some more questions.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was fine. So, you were part of the subcommittee, and we listened to a lot of discussion. The other question I had was maybe to the administration. Could you go over the rationale? And I know we asked that the subcommittee why you chose the positions the new positions we're funding over existing positions. Why did you choose those new positions to add as opposed to keeping older positions and so forth? Sort of the rationale behind that.
Sure. I think that the new positions reflect the changing needs. So as an example, we have 17 rising students that will be in the K-Rise program in the fall. That's a kindergarten Rise program. And so that requires 2 classroom teachers and multiple paraprofessionals. That's a legal requirement that we have to meet. And so that kind of analysis was done to vet out what the needs really are.
So you were looking at the system as a whole and trying to meet the needs of the budget with the needs of the system?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
I thought there was someone else. Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, again, to kind of what both Dr. Wells and Mr. Lipset were speaking of, I do have a sheet in here from the April 26th meeting, and I'll reference Mr. Akanada's technical abilities here. April 26th, Bob, you presented us, the bottom line down here was, we started at 19% for those that have a copy of this. Obviously, the administration did some cuts and checked into things. Then we went down on that same night on April 26th, 16.27%. Again, knowing that's not going to fly with downtown. So you folks had here, we, the administration and school board, just another cuts to get it to 14.3. And you may or may not have these, Mr. Akana, I don't know, but you had a budget cut and the amount. So you had reduced capital line items, IT and facilities to zero for $1,500,000. Staff offsets, retirements, personnel moves of $224,000. And the next was 14.53. Then we had to go ahead and make some other cuts on that evening. This is again before last week's notification from City Hall. This is the 26th. We had school department budget cuts again, reduced most line items to a F23 level, as you indicated, Mr. Akanada, 555, and that then got us to 13.77. So I don't know if you could discuss some of that, to kind of what Dr. Wells was referring to as well. Where was that night at 13.77 before the $1 million cut of last week and the others, unless I'm confusing the heck out of everybody here?
We had that at finance. I can sort of maybe help and Ms. Deltonado.
Sure.
A lot of that money was transferred, like we talked about, the capital improvement items. Those were sent down to City Hall. A lot of things were moved to ESSER funds, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of it was moving things out of the proposed budget into auxiliary areas.
Okay, so my understanding, so at that point, we were at 13.77, and here we are tonight, laying off again people in some crucial positions and programs to get us to 7.05. So I don't know if we could take measures to, I guess your indication, Mr. Akana, with level funding would mean level and the people remain in place, correct?
Well, as I said, by true definition, level funded would be that all line items would be at what they were the previous fiscal year. And by true definition, your personnel would remain the same. We know that that can't happen because we have mandated positions that we have to add. So
with that said, then, so just hypothetically, if you had that 12%, if you had the level funding and then added in what you necessarily have to put in tonight, what kind of a percentage would you think we'd be at? It's tough to say, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I think
or
that,
figure even.
I think that the percentage that we're at now allows the school district to function.
The 7%?
I think all of them, I'm certain all of the mandated positions are in at that number. We have put most of the line items back to FY23. There are notable exceptions, as I have indicated in the past.
Okay, so I guess my question would be, if, as we did the previous meeting, I wanted to start adding some things back in, is that possible this evening as well, to the number that we currently have in front of us? I believe that's the steps tonight before we have a final number, or is this the number?
We decide.
Yeah, we can make a decision and.
Well, I mean, there was so many in here that I'll wait to hear from others, but I mean, if, it's been brought to our attention that, there are ways we can do this, and perhaps the city council can get on board with this, and we can kind of in our own way send a message to the mayor, whether or not he just, again, notifies the administration that not acceptable to the mayor, at least we didn't just kick, we're going to make an attempt here, I think is what I'm trying to say. It's just so much at loss here, looking at, so much. And you heard a little bit about me before, but I'd be interested to hear if any other committee members had any say about the positions and the numbers that are before us tonight, so I'll yield to other members.
Mrs. Cormier.
I just want to say that I appreciate all of the feedback. I know everybody's, what they are looking for. We are also, we are very disappointed about what we are being asked to cut. So I'm going to make a motion to add back the positions that were cut, that were not just FY24 asks. That is my motion. I would like to add back all of the laid off employees, current employees.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, point of information, I think we need to have that list and cost. We can't just make that general motion.
I mean, Bob could highlight
I
it
know,
there.
I just want the information.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
Okay. So,
Procedurally, I'll second the motion for Ms. Cormier.
so your motion is anything that, any position that was in
Current
place?
employees. Yep.
Okay. So how will we, to your point?
We need to get a number.
You have to have a number. We can't
So
just.
for clarification, it would be the wellness coordinator,
There's
the
13
two computer
positions.
science.
There's 13 positions.
We added in 4, so now I think we need to go through them. If Ms. Cormier's motion is, I guess maybe what we should see is how much that would be.
Right.
And maybe that's how we would deliberate.
So you're working on that, Bob?
So that would include
Yeah,
HR.
I'll need to.
Yeah, give
us some
Give me
time.
some time to
Yeah,
add that
okay.
together.
Okay, so we have a motion, but in
And a second.
a second, I'm sorry. So on the motion, is there anything,
A question on the motion to the committee. What about the positions the new positions that the superintendent is recommending? Is there any desire to eliminate those to balance out the positions they want to add?
I'd like to see what the number is here.
Because
Because we were, if I'm not mistaken, we added the other night, wasn't it 300
We had a 311.
About that,
yes.
yeah.
approximate? So that
Last
brought
week,
us from
yes.
6.83, if I'm using the right numbers, I'm just off the top of my head, to 7.06 or something,
05,
05.
79, 216.
which we're not sure if the mayor was interested in that number as opposed to the one he was at. So I'm just saying, so we already have
Just
some.
a point of information, you know that the mayor and the council only get the bottom line
Yeah,
approval.
yeah. They're not cutting
Right.
positions, they're just working with a number.
Looking at the implications of that.
So,
943, Bob.
That has been already added back.
that was yours?
You're
All
right.
yours.
Thank you.
There. Not sure if I have them all here.
Did you want to talk about?
There should be 10,
Yeah.
based on the 3 that were added
Talk
back.
about that.
So there
Well-
should be 10 positions, I think.
Well, last week we did add back
3.
four
Four.
positions, I think.
Well, last week,
Yeah.
So 9.
HR, high school, middle school.
Well, we're just
12, excuse me, Bob.
working on that.
Counselors.
There's been some discussion of the, I forget, provision or Mass General Law. I know that you and Ellen had been looking into it, and myself and
Chapter 44, section 32.
There you go,
That's the
says the lawyer. With an opportunity for to present it. Oh, why don't you just go with it? 'Cause I don't know.
Well, I guess as Bob is crashing, calculating the numbers,
He had middle school computer class.
I think we would need to have a serious legal opinion on how we ask the council to add to our budget. There is a lever that we can pull in my understanding of the law and also our charter that allows us to pull a lever and speak with our budget directly to the council. And this has never been done, and there's very little interpretation on it written out there, but there is a possibility. In my personal opinion, I do not think it should be millions of dollars. It should be something that we can tightly justify. And that's just my opinion.
On the, just quick.
Talk to us.
That would not include the 1.8 and 600,000 plus
Right.
that is not in the budget, so that could be affected without any input by the committee or the council.
On the motion?
Sure.
Uh,
Ms. Cormier.
I realize that this may sound like a lot, and I appreciate the 4 positions that were added back last week, but I'm finding it hard to pick and choose. Again, these are people, and even if I don't look at them as people, and I just say positions, we've heard and we know that these are essential, and I know the administration had a difficult job to choose things because they were required to choose, not saying that they wanted these to go, but based on their evaluation of the situation, I appreciate that and I understand that, but I feel like we need to advocate for these.
Mm-hmm.
And if he says no, he says no. I understand his position today. I understand what he brought before us. I know that some of these funds are finite and we can't just keep drawing from them every year. Things do change, another COVID or whatever, but I think it's worth a shot. And with an explanation of why.
Well, one of the reasons I was hoping he would have hung in a little bit is to hear some of the people that were advocating for certain things and justifiably, on all levels. And our job is to present a budget, that may not be accepted, but then we kind of come back and then the administration needs to work on it a little bit more if we are steadfast on certain items and they start pulling from other items. So
What is the absolute deadline? Like, is it June 30th? It's like, when do we have to have an approved budget?
we have two deadlines.
May 1. Yeah.
Right, yes, normally, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But,
He gave us an extension to us Monday.
So there's a couple different, there's May 15th, there's a contractual obligation.
Okay.
We can work with the WTA to potentially extend that.
Sure.
We've done that in the past. If that gives us more time to analyze and advocate.
Mhm.
And as far, like the committee indicated, typically it's done, we thought we were going to pass the budget April 26th.
Right.
And so we're already past that. I do believe that if we want, there's flexibility with the city. Typically we go down, the mayor submits his budget to the council, usually mid-May, to give them time to look at it. And then we go down as the school department back late May, early June. And again, the rationale is we need to hire people and move forward. So
And let people know if their
let
jobs are
people know,
saved.
right, out of respect. So
Mhm.
there's realities to it.
Yes, understood.
So if I may, if I've captured everything, and I believe I have, it would be an additional $661,712, which would bring your budget to almost $79.9 million, a 7.94% increase. Clearly, I've gone through the spreadsheets quickly. I do believe that's a good number, but it's possible I've missed something.
Mr. Chisholm.
I'm just getting a little confused on how we're changing these numbers all around, but we've asked the superintendent and his staff to do, or his team, just to provide us with a budget and let us know what they feel they need to run the school system. I mean, so now we're going to sit here and just cherry pick. I mean, we're hiring, or would like to hire 25 new positions for next year. So are we going to take those out and not do the mandated things that we have to do? Because we're not going to get all that money. Otherwise, we will lose out on the out of district, and we will lose out on the capital. And we know that. And those of us that have sat here for years know that. And there is no way that when this goes down to the council, because if you get 9.8% with adding in what he's going to take on the other side, on the city side, would be over a 10% budget. I said, that's this year. And next year, when ESSA runs out, you're probably looking at a 14%. And I'm not so sure that, this is feasible and would be able to be done. I mean, there's some people that, I feel bad. No one wants to give out pink slips. No one wants these jobs to be lost. This wasn't easy for anybody, but at the same time, we have to present a budget, one way or the other.
And
Did Dr. Wilson?
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
I just,
Dr. Wilson.
I'm trying to take a long view of the whole situation here, and we know we're going to be looking for buildings. I don't know yet. We're going to be looking for repairs of buildings and so forth, and he has given us a direction that he thinks complies with the city. We're going to have to go down there and push for these new buildings and these repairs. It's all part of the long look, and if we're rejecting it without a good rational explanation, why are we adding all these other positions? Why aren't you swapping those other positions? Why aren't you charging bus fees? Why aren't you charging athletic fees? Why don't you do that first? Then I think, we're not making a strong enough case. If we were at the situation where we couldn't operate the system, then I'd be there with you. But that's not the case. We've heard it's not the case. And to say that we're looking at all the options, we haven't even talked about busing fees. We haven't talked about athletic fees. We're just saying we want to do, on our part, it's an easy thing, add things. We haven't talked about the hard things, like making people in the city pay for things. Nobody wants to do that, but that's a hard thing to do.
on the motion, central office, the superintendent's office, suggested, I guess, after some really deep thinking about the HR director, who's not student-facing. And now we're saying, no, you're going to keep the HR. It just seems like it's really overreach by the school committee. Because the administration has said, we can operate without that if we're willing to make that sacrifice so that we can hire more student-facing people and mandated people like BCBAs for behavioral issues in the classroom. And so now we're like, we're going to add that back in and help central office. I'm not fully on board with this. I think what we need to do is prioritize mental health, student resources, and if a general ed teacher is needed during the school year, we are going to get that general ed teacher. That's contractually obligated. So I think we just need to think smarter. And I also just want to, because this has been on my mind, I just felt so moved by the students that came tonight, and I'm so grateful for their courage and speaking out against to random local authorities. I'm just so impressed. And so I just feel like we need to prioritize needs and not just add everything in because we're trying to make some sort of statement. I think we really need to narrow it down. So I'm not in favor of adding everything back in. I want a thoughtful, I want a good thing here because we need to just sell it. It needs to be more than just like, we didn't want to do what you said.
On the motion?
Sure.
I absolutely agree with you, and I completely understand. I wanted to start the conversation.
Of course.
And I would love to hear amendments. I didn't want to come out and say, add everybody back except the HR person.
Right.
And I'm not trying to make a statement, but I agree, not student-facing, and again, they prioritized already. If we're asking the priorities, I want the committee to have this opportunity to speak as well. I'm not saying that I know how this should be done, but yes, I appreciate you and your comments.
Yeah, I think, thank you. I think I just freaked out a little bit.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, so,
It's understood.
just the,
Can I just make a suggestion? I mean, might it be easier to, with respect to Ms. Cormier's motion, table that motion and begin to go through and prioritize positions that are student-facing, where we do see that impact to our students pretty severely, especially in areas of mental health and student support, and see where that takes us. Would that be amenable to you?
I'm down.
Okay.
Isn't that just one position?
Not in my mind. No.
Okay, so we're going to table the motion and second and start a conversation.
Well, I think a conversation would start with a motion.
Have them
Right.
withdraw their motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest way.
Probably withdraw.
On the motion,
Oh, so on the
Withdraw my
motion.
motion under duress.
If you don't want to withdraw your motion, don't withdraw your
The city
motion.
tabled it. I don't know. Whatever you think is best.
Yeah.
In this.
So,
It's not, yeah, I mean,
here
you
you
can go right back up. Bob did the work, it's not going anywhere. Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing me. And again, thank you, Mr. Akinada. So you're telling us, Bob, that if this motion were to pass by Ms. Cormier, it's
would it just be these teachers?
it's $1 million less? Yeah, we just try to, what was your quote again?
$661,712.
That would be adding back in to satisfy keeping the people that she's referred to.
Yes, that's what I believe the number is.
Less than $1 million.
Yes, that is less than $1 million.
And if I have my notes corrected, and again, we had a great presentation by the mayor, and I tried my best to, pick and choose where the money could be taken from. To your point, Mr. Less than $1 million. $14 million stables, and I get it, Mr. Mayor. Can't do this, you can't do that. But again, $14 million stabilization, 3.9 free cash, 7.5 overlay account, and I think it was stated tonight about the rainy day account. In a budget this size, and, what our people are doing, to do what Ms. Cormier's intention would be, $1 million, really, when you're looking at that, doesn't really seem like much, but that's just one man's opinion. And all those supplies and things are still gonna be going, because we had to do that in one day. Little line items, mileage here, software there, hospital tutoring line item, 10 grand. Some of these things, as indicated by tonight, we could go all night long and ask the poor administration team, what does that actually mean? What does that do when you take that away? Who's losing out? So that was $1 million, 909,453 in 8 to 10 hours that, the team came up with, in, different areas. So, that was $1 million there. Now we're just gonna ask to put less than $1 million back in. And just,
Can we move the motion,
to just
Mr. Chairman?
give it a
If you're
shot.
not- If you can't table the motion, then you have to withdraw. It doesn't sound like the second wants to withdraw. Let's move the motion, and then we can move forward with maybe a modified motion.
No, I withdrew.
But he didn't withdraw his, unless he withdraws.
I didn't
his
realize
second.
He did on the motion still, so.
I wanted to catch it before.
So-
Do you want to withdraw your second on the motion?
I stand by Ms. Cormier's attempt right now to, do what we're trying
Move
to
the
do.
motion.
Yeah, move the motion, please.
Call the roll.
Ms. Chisholm?
No.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. Crowley?
No.
Mr. Lipset?
No.
Mr. Mulrennan?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
No.
Mr. Kissel?
No.
All right.
Andrew can.
All right, so I do think it is important to try to do this position by position. I think adding in a whole bunch in one motion is going to get complex. I apologize, I realize that we're getting late here, but I do think that's probably the best way to do this if we're going to do this. We have added back in our last budget session the transition teacher, 2 resource room teachers, the test materials line, AP testing, and the Woburn Memorial High School social worker. I would like to propose that we add to that list of positions we're adding back into the budget. I'll start with the WMHS secretary positions.
Second.
Do we have a total? Is that all you said?
The total on that
70,000 or so.
is about $70,000.
On the motion, did you want, is that your priority list?
Just one?
That is where I'm starting.
Okay.
So we have a motion, do we have a second? I don't know who said second.
Yes.
Second, and
$70,264.
so that would be adding in 70,000. So this is taking it piece by piece. We were at 6 and change. We're adding to the 3.
No, we were at 705. Because we don't want to cut what we added back in. These are additional to what we added back last week.
Right. Add backs in this
Right.
column.
With the 311,000 we added last week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
7.05.
Yeah, I wasn't talking percentage, I was actually talking
Oh.
the dollar amounts. All right, so that is, do I have?
Call the roll.
Unless
Unless
another
there's
roll.
any discussion on the motion.
Ms. Chisholm?
No.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. Crowley?
No.
Mr. Lipset?
Yes.
Mr. Mulrennan?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
No.
Mr. Kissel?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay.
Motion carried.
All right. So what are we at now?
So your percentage now is 7.14% after adding those positions back in.
Okay, did you have?
I do, I have one more.
One more?
If being is amenable. I would like to propose adding back in the Woburn Memorial High School English teacher.
Second.
Anything on the motion? I guess roll call again.
Ms. Chisholm?
No.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. Crowley?
No.
Mr. Lipset?
Yes.
Mr. Morenin?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
No.
Mr. Kissel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'm going to be coming back to us.
I'm good for now.
That's it. Okay, so we have 2 more positions we added since the other night, instead of the full list. Mr. Mulren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, I'll make an attempt here for the HR director. I made my spiel about what could happen. We'll take the will of the committee, so I make a motion. We, again, add back the HR position for the HR director's office here at the central office. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion, have a second, anybody?
My next amendment, Mr. Chairman, my next motion would be to restore the adjustment councils at Woburn Memorial High School, as well as the middle school computer science program at both middle schools.
Is that the
And Mr.
139
Allen can
total?
do those figures, I guess.
Point of order, I
Wait,
think.
it hasn't been seconded.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Second.
Make a motion, we restore the adjustment council at Woburn Memorial High School.
Point of order, that's the position that was added back in our last
Last time. It's
not on
session.
your
That's
front
the
page.
social work
I already
position.
did that.
Social work.
Yes.
I had it on another page.
That is already
here.
in the
Yeah,
proposed budget.
we already did that.
Already got that. So,
Can I make a motion to?
well, were you still doing the
I'd
the
like to,
139?
Yeah,
The computer?
The computer program, computer science classes at the middle school. I feel we've heard from staff, we've heard from community members, we just have to realize the importance of middle school computer science. I saw the technology director at the Kennedy they built a robot. Well, without a computer, they couldn't have built that robot. Without the technology and training and class assignment of computers, they couldn't have built the robots. So I'd just like to try to restore the middle school computer science programs. That's my motion.
Second.
On the motion.
Yes.
To the administration. Describe for me again, this was an elective, and what that means in terms of the number of students that take the class, and how electives are thought of as opposed to a traditional class.
So the middle school, the electives are trimesters, and computer science is one of the trimesters that it was alluded to tonight. I do believe that over the course of the year, multiple hundreds of students take this class, but it's for 1/3 of the year.
And is it possible that some, I know not all of computer science can be taught, but is it possible, with the loss of this thing, maybe for a year, or we look at their system again, that some of the material that would be covered in that could be covered in science class, math class, et cetera? I'm asking that because I'm not in the classroom, but it'd be good to know.
I'm not sure. I think it would be, the math has a curriculum, science has a curriculum,
Right.
so.
Okay.
Okay, so we had motion, second. Colleen?
Yes, I seconded.
So we need a roll call?
Ms. Chisholm?
No.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. Crowley?
No.
Mr. Lipset?
No.
Mr. Morenin?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
No.
Mr. Kissel?
No.
Motion failed.
All right.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, there you go. You all set?
Considering we're adding positions here, and I can see the English teacher at the high school. So, since we have reading specialists in every building starting next year, is there any appetite to reallocate the long-term sub that was acting as the resource teacher? Cut that, since the reading specialist can cover some of that work. So I'll make a motion to cut the
Kennedy? At the Kennedy, you know, for the rationale that the Kennedy will be having a reading specialist for half the time.
So,
Second.
On the motion?
Dr. Wells?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you trying to balance out things because you want to add something. But I think, you know, and I said it, I think the first budget meeting, you know, the superintendent and his staff have worked on a budget and worked on how they want to run the school system with the resources that we're giving them, and to try to stick the way that they've included makes it more difficult for them, and I think it's unfair for the committee.
These aren't one of their additions.
Just as a clarification, this is one that we added back.
Okay.
So now it's added.
My apologies.
She wants to take it out for the two.
6995.
Because as you know, administration did talk about having very doable case numbers and did some math to come up with this. And plus, it'll be an extra person to provide specialized instruction. Just a thought. That's my motion.
I lost track.
I made
That's
the
your
second.
motion. We have a second. Did you make a second?
I did.
You did. All right. So
So we're going to be taking out the resource room at the Kennedy Middle School, additional teacher.
And that's
not a layoff,
currently
it's a long-term
currently a
sub
long-term
bucket.
sub-position.
But on the motion,
Dr. Wells?
how would that be equity in the system because of the Joyce, because you added back the Joyce resource? And I'm concerned a little bit if we take one and we don't have it in the other one.
I can't really speak to equity in the system without administration,
I mean, I-
referring it to administration.
I think when we made this decision, we were looking at caseloads with the idea that it could function again. None of it's ideal.
No,
so,
that's
that's why we made the recommendation.
But you, through the chair, to the administrator, so you know, you had to make a recommendation, you eliminated both positions.
Yes.
And that would have maintained equity in the two systems.
Yes.
Putting one back in one building and not in the other would seem to me not to be equitable.
That would be true.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, based on the superintendent's comments about that, I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay. Motion's been withdrawn.
Can I make a motion to add back the wellness coordinator?
Have a second? Have a motion and a second to add back in the wellness coordinator?
On the motion.
On the motion, Dr. Wells?
There was a lot of discussion about the coordinator positions and the needs of coordinators, and we heard some people advocating that we didn't need coordinators, but we did need this one particular coordinator, even if we got rid of all the other ones, and I was just a little confused by the discussion today, so.
On the motion.
There you go.
I know we heard some testimony today about the need for a coordinator in this area. We have been talking so much about social emotional learning and the issues that we're having right now. I have worked with this person, and it's not just about the person, but on various projects, and I think it is vital to continue supporting our adjustment counselors and all of the health and wellness staff at this point, where we are in 2023 with the issues that we're having, unfortunately. So I obviously fully support this.
Okay.
On the motion? Sorry. On this one, I'm genuinely torn for a variety of reasons. One is that, yes, we are advancing a budget that's very significantly over the ask, and we have added back a lot of very important positions. We have a lot of our social emotional staff maintained, and we've added back. At the same time, speaking as an educator, it is rare to hear educators stick up for curriculum coordinators in private, let alone in public. And so that's sort of a point in the favor. So I think I'm going to support this motion, but I guess I should note that I'm doing so with some hesitation.
So we're on the motion, still on the motion.
On the motion, I support adding this in. And I think what it does, it really provides an infrastructure and counseling. It really provides that space where school adjustment counselors can have a place to debrief, which I think will help the system as a whole. So I support this.
On the motion?
As well as some of my colleagues have spoken, Mr. Chairman, I support this as well. I can't even say we're out of COVID, we're coming out of COVID. So any aspect that helps in the COVID realm, post-COVID scenarios that, our students and our staff are dealing with, I think, there'll be help in this category as well. So hopefully, it is about the student-based people and the student-facing, but I think, we can shift a little bit about that position into our staff as well. I'm sure they're, as well as the administration, I probably had enough of COVID, but they're dealing with it just like our students have. And some of the data tonight showed it's still a lingering effect on society. So I think it's a well-needed position.
Okay. So we have a motion, second, to add back in the wellness coordinator, or this is new? Keep it? Yeah, is it new or?
No, it's existing.
So, yeah, so put it back in, wellness coordinator. Roll call, please.
Ms. Chisholm?
No.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Lipset?
Yes.
Mr. Morenon?
Yes, please.
Dr. Wells?
No.
Mr. Kissel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do we have anyone else looking to do anything? Do I have to, if I have something, do I have to step down?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
Can't you just hand over the gavel?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
You just hand over the
let's do
gavel.
that.
Recognizing Mr. Kissel?
So I would like to add in, it's not on our list, and I don't know if it even made the first round. And I'll preface it with the phys ed positions, which we talked about quite a bit in previous emails during the negotiations and so on. And part of my thought process is, and it is something that I believe is really, is that we have a lot of, help needed up at the high school. When I say that, meaning for mental health and so on. My thought is, I think that the elementary school especially needs some help, the kids, and I'd like to kind of, I'm not going to say fix them, but give them an opportunity early on to kind of have some opportunity not to just be stuck in a classroom and, out and doing some other things. So I guess having said that, hopefully that's some efforts will be made along the way with the younger kids too. Maybe wouldn't need as much help down the road as well. So I would like to put those back in. Okay. So that is my motion.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kissel. Discussion, at least.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Sorry, that's my rule.
Yeah.
On the motion?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I appreciate
Mr.
Kissel-
Wells?
Mr. Kissel's attempt here, because I know you were bargaining with that, it was brought up, but of the things we've seen, I just can't support adding that. There's a lot of other things that would go before that on my priority list. And unfortunately, I don't think any of the ones we've added back, although they're important, are not going to make the final cut. So.
And I said it before, Mayor was part of all our discussions, and
Anything else on the motion from any
hopefully there'll be
members?
some wiggle room.
Uh,
All right, so I have a second.
No, you're
Yes.
not.
Oh, he's gotta do it, that's
Mr.
right.
Kissel's motion was to restore, to add back in the PE positions.
You can't second it, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, you
The other
can't
chair.
second it.
Wasn't one of them library?
That was a
It was either PE or library, depending on.
And I guess currently I'm the chairperson at this time.
You can pass the gavel,
Right. I think we need clarification on what the motion specifically is, and then we need whether or not there's a second.
My motion is to put the PE positions back in, which Bob already put up there. Pretty straightforward. You can't second it, so I need a second.
I'll recognize Mr. Kissel's motion at least, and I can't second that. Second by Ms. Cormier. And the discussion was already presented by Dr. Wells. Any further discussion on Mr. Kissel's motion?
do a roll
Seeing
call.
none, roll call, please. Dr. Crowley.
Miss Chisholm?
No.
Miss Cormier?
Yes.
Miss Crowley?
No.
Mr. Lipset?
No.
Mr. Mulrennan?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
No.
Mr. Kissel?
Yes.
Motion failed.
That motion failed. Any other discussion from Mr. Kissel at this point?
Give him back his gavel.
Get the gavel back.
Nice. Thank you.
Did anyone jot down what the actual mayor's number was?
Yes.
No, not percentage. He flashed a number in front of us. and
Yeah,
wrote it down.
79814.
Oh, there it is.
I'll highlight it, it's right there.
Yeah, it wasn't the same as what we have, but
Let's see.
Okay, is there anything, anyone else have suggestions or anything they want to make a motion on?
just a matter of discussion, if I could, Mr. Chairman. I know I made the attempt for the high school adjustment councils, and then again, some other further discussion from members about workloads and the students being served. So I just think, again, workload's going to be tough up there at the high school if this is a number, and these are the personnel that have to deal with it. And we heard from students tonight the difficulties that they're going through. So, I tried my best. It wasn't the wish of the committee, so we'll move on from there. But I think, when you talk about workload, we can go down the entire list of everyone in different programmings all across the district, and the workload because of this, situation that we've been put in. They're going to be suffering, and we've done our best, and I'm going to try to maybe entertain Ms. Crowley's, thought about, suggesting that we get a legal opinion, as to our next steps. But I just want to make sure everybody's aware that that's where I stand tonight. Thank you.
All right, so anything else with the budget as of?
We have to have a final motion on the final budget.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget for $79,432,098, a 7.34% increase.
Second.
On the motion?
Dr. Wells.
Yeah, as I've said, this will be my last budget. My first budget was in 1980. At that point, 2.5 had passed in the state of Massachusetts.
I was 4 months
You
old.
think this is a tough budget? We had to lay off a number of teachers, long-established teachers. So, I understand everything is relative to the here and now, but having seen budgets over the years, this was not a bad budget at 6.7%. It wasn't what, the wish list was. We started with the wish list, we started moving things down. But again, it's a living document that the superintendent is developing to live within the means. We know what the means are going to be. And I understand, the negotiations with the mayor, talking to the mayor, that all happens during the course of this budget negotiations. He hears what we need. That's why we're getting the $1.8 million outside the budget. So I think sometimes we forget these things and we don't look at them long term. So I'm not going to support this budget because I don't think it's going to go through, and I don't think it's the right way to do the budget. I do want to comment a little bit about the AP courses. Some people think maybe that I decided that maybe we should cut that originally. I wasn't the original proponent of cutting the AP course curriculum material. That came from the previous high school principal. And I think she echoed some of the same concerns that I have. I've looked at the AP scores. Our students do not do well compared to the state averages. There's a question of why that's happening. And so one thing is, maybe they don't feel invested. I'm sure lots of students do, but I'm sure lots of students don't because there's no cost to them. So I think, to say that I'm picking that out of the thin air, this was brought by an educator to us as a potential cut a few years ago. I supported that then. I opposed Ms. Chisholm's, and I understand her motion, and it makes sense.
Of course.
Of course it does. I never said anything that didn't make sense. But I think, we have to look at, what's best for the students. And we know the students that are most needy for financial aid, they would have gotten the support for that. So, I just wanted to clarify a little bit about the AP courses. Appreciate the administration's work on this, appreciate the committee's work on this, but, I think we're just going to be back here. Hopefully, that's all the ramifications are, that we're just going back here and trying to make our budget meet that original number that we were finally given. Thank you.
I don't know who's up first. Mr. Lipset.
I hear and appreciate everything that Dr. Wells says. We are now, or probably potentially about to be, in uncharted waters with this. And I don't know how this is going to go. But I do think that it's important that we make the attempt. A friend of mine who's on a school committee in a neighboring district, and I can't take credit for this, but I love it and I wish that I could, once said to me that the job of a school committee member is to stand with our students in a rainstorm and hold up an umbrella. And education today is a vastly different beast than it has been in my time. I've been an educator for 14 years. The level of need, the level of difficulty, the level of challenges that our kids are going through every single day is so far and away above what I think anyone who doesn't work in education or see it as a parent can really understand. And that's not to cast aspersions on anyone. Just to say that for those of us who live it every day, the idea of not having some of these positions that are there to directly support our students, and that includes everyone from a social worker to a transition teacher to secretaries who are able to meet the needs of our diverse families. These are positions that I think are there for our kids. So I came in tonight perfectly prepared to oppose a budget that included particular staff cuts. I am pleased to say that I am going to be supporting this one.
Okay. Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As indicated by Mr. Lipson, I also will support what we have here tonight for various different reasons, but I want to applaud the numerous emails that were sent to this committee and distributed to us members from Mr. Kissel. As someone has sat to many public hearings on the school budget, and to see this crowd and the people come out and the students come out and the families come out and speak and have their voices heard tonight by this committee. Some public hearing on the budget, some of you may remember, nobody shows up. One person, two people, the vote is over, and we're home by 7:15. I can't see the clock. I don't know what time it is. But to me, this was time well spent. This was time well spent, time to give our people a chance to speak. As I commented earlier, how I went down to the city council on the overall budget. I see some councilors here tonight. Perhaps you remember some of my emails of me coming in person. And again, it's a public hearing on the overall city budget. Nobody came. So again, your voices are being heard. My voice, for what it was worth, just said, in favor of the budget, and things went out, and things happened. I think, to have this figure, perhaps Dr. Wells is right. It'll be shot back down to us, and we'll have to make even harder, tougher decisions down the road. Or perhaps we can utilize what Ms. Crowley referenced to as far as the city charter and get some legal opinions as to can we go higher than what the percentage was originally. So I'd like to support this tonight and also in the future. So that's my soapbox for this evening, and I can't tell what time it is.
10:18.
And that was my 3 minutes.
Yep, I was at 3 minutes. Mr. Crowley.
I'm going to vote affirmatively for this budget, but a lot of these positions I read back in just weren't part of my priorities. My priorities were narrowly focused very much on mental health for our students, and I'm afraid that adding in all the other positions is going to drain that out, and we're going to end up having to cut. And so I really wanted our presentation of our budget to really be themed around student needs, because I think there's an argument to be made to the council that it is a emergency situation that requires action by the council, and so I really wanted to just be focused on that. But I am going to support it because I generally think that I am 100% buying the ideology that we we need to stand up and articulate very clearly what the needs are. And I also tend to defer to Mr. Lipset on what's needed at the high school for, general ed instruction sort of thing. So basically what I'm saying is I don't like it, but I'm going to hold my nose and vote for it and see what happens. And I just also, if we vote on this and it's 700 something or 800 something above what the mayor gave us, we have to be prepared to all engage. We cannot just leave it to the superintendent to, good luck. I think we all need to be engaged in this because this is going to be like the thing. So, okay.
Okay, Ms. Cormier.
I appreciate Ms. Crowley's comments. I agree as far as mental health. I just feel like some of these sort of have a trickle-down effect, sort of upstream, where if these positions aren't in place, there are other areas that are going to be drawn from. So that is why I supported the positions that I did, because even though an English teacher might not directly affect social emotional, and that person they may actually be helping kids with social emotional needs, even though it's not in her job description. That is going to relieve other areas, and I think that is still going to overall help the social emotional position that some of our kids are in. So thank you.
Okay. So we have...
Just a point of information.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. So my understanding is what the mayor submits is a bottom line number. So it will, we will not see it probably before he submits it. He'll submit a bottom line number, and then it'll go to the council with that bottom line number. We have no say over the bottom line number that he submits. It's not like he may send it back to us. He may not. He may just send the bottom line number down to the...
Okay. Ms. Chisholm.
Doesn't have to be our number either.
Right, so that's my concern. I think that when this goes out tomorrow to him, or he finds out tonight or wherever, we need to have a meeting booked. And you have to ask him if we can make the cuts and not him. I mean, he'll take out the money, but we're going to be needed to make those adjustments because we have a deadline with the union if these positions don't get in there. I mean, because they'll hear tonight that maybe their position's saved, and then what happens if it's not? And then what happens if, I just think we need to be prepared to do that, but hopefully he doesn't, if he does put that number in that he has, we have to come back and make these cuts again. So I think we need to book a meeting for probably next week early to do this again.
When will he get back to us? If he gets back to us.
Doesn't have to get back until he submits it to the council, the way I understand it.
Yeah.
So maybe premature next week.
Well,
So do you know the date that
Yeah.
he is actually going to be giving it this?
I don't know. I don't know his date.
You don't know?
The council
No.
knows, but whatever happens tonight, you take your vote. I'm
Yeah.
sure I will have contact tomorrow.
Right.
Okay.
But that's just my thing. So when speaking with him, if we could find out if he is going to just give us the bottom line, which I'm pretty sure he probably will, if we can make those cuts ourselves, so we can.
Yeah, we would.
No.
He's not. What do you mean?
Yeah, I don't believe the mayor has line item.
No, he doesn't. But I want to say, but people need to know what's actually going to happen.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
So I don't think it should be dragged on for weeks. I just think we need to make sure we get that done.
You all set? Mr. Chisholm?
Yep, yeah.
Mr. Morano?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If again, to Mr. Chisholm's point, obviously, we have contracts obligation with the WTA. Perhaps we can have the superintendent try to, work out a calendar as far as, those obligations as well, seeing the fact that, we did all of what we just did, in such a short notice. I know, cooperation is key here tonight, so I think, at least we're looking at that perhaps tomorrow, Dr. Crowley, and let us know how that goes, because we don't want to be, as Ms. Chisholm was saying, in a tough position like that with the WTA again. But we made all efforts we could tonight, and perhaps still have an understanding with you in the near future. So, just another note for you to add there, Dr. Crowley.
So we have a motion, we have a second to accept the 7.34, $79,432,098. It's pretty good, huh? Do I have, I guess we're going to do a roll call. We had a second already, so roll call.
Ms. Chisholm?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
In favor?
Ms. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Lipset?
Yes.
Mr. Morenin?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
No.
Mr. Kissel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn.
It's going to be like.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.